1.73 kilometers at Daytona Beach here in Florida. Daytona International Speedway, arguably the circuit of January. If you ever get the chance, it's the place where you absolutely have to be. It is arguably one of the 4 jewels of the World Tour calendars, hosting the 24 hours of Daytona. But here today, a shorter race, a 2-hour, 25-minute raw-styled event. But this is more than just a styled event. This is its own championship series. We're here for Club Sport, here on the iRacing esports network, here, of course, with RaceSpotTV. And, of course, it's Jake Sperry, joined with Nolan Rempel here in the commentary booth with a race for 45 vehicles, which will be a challenge to say the least. And, well, Nolan, 3 vehicles, one being the Radical SR8, the free vehicle that has recently just been made free by the iRacing service. Of course, the very famous Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car that you see in the likes of the Porsche Pro Qualifying Series earlier on today. And, of course, the wonderful MX-5s that have been a staple of iRacing for such a number of years. This is a challenge in all categories.
Well, it certainly is, and each one of these cars has different aspects that you have to look out for. Specifically, if you go for the Radicals, they really have to keep an eye out, especially for turn 1, because if you lock up the back wheels on those Radicals, oh boy, that back end can step out on you in a hurry. I know very well myself, so it's something you really have to watch out for. It's something these drivers are going to have to watch out for, especially going down into turn number 1, turns like the bus stop chicane over there on the back straightaway. This is sure to be a very interesting race here, Jake.
It certainly should, with all these vehicles looking to vie for some very, very important early season form in the championship. This race becomes one very important one. A mixture so far this season, we will see, of 2.4-hour races and, of course, bigger 4-hour events as well. And we are under a minute and 20 seconds from the checkered flag. In fact, it's been thrown a little bit early, so qualifying is all over here at Daytona Beach. And this is how the race field will stack up. Graphite Racing then get themselves on the pole position with SimRC.de Strawberry. Alongside them, PCDC Yellow will start from 3rd with SK Motorsports in 4th position. WR Racing B will start from 5th with S-Rock Orange in 6th. Nibble Racing in 7th, with 8th position being held by the VAPEX Racing Group Blue, as we have Bad Cactus Racing Chola rounding out 9, and 10th in class is the WR Racing first vehicle, which currently sets a time only good enough for 18th position. When it comes to your Porsche category, it's the Porsche Basel by Sorg Rennsport esports team, which holds the advantage by just 8 thousandths of a second over Gold Racing Team White, with Bombshell Motorsports Inc. number 186 in 3rd in category. Nab Racing's 4th with Hugh Janus Blue in 5th place, with Enigma ClubSport Porsche in 6th. And then 2 German teams, German Sim Racing Blue and German Disaster Racing, 7th and 8th in that division. You cycle on down the likes of Team Vikings Valhalla, will find themselves in 21st overall, likes of the slow racing team. SimSport News Racing is there, powered by iZone Green in that 26th spot overall. And then into your MX-5s, which sees Talk Freak Racing Maggots and Gianni Quintelier, the quickest of the lot, with Sarah Dove in the SimSport News car 2nd. Gold Racing Team find themselves 3rd, with GT Temple in 4th. Ava Vavatic 5th position with Team Vikings in 6th, and the Real Pixel Motorsports iCar in 7th in category. A lot of vehicles that did not get a qualifying lap time in. That includes both 3 of VAPEX Racing Group cars, 2 World of Sim Racing team cars, along with PCDC Red, Bombshell Inc., Disabled Motorsports, and 7 Stars Fast, who did not get to set their lap times. They will have to go through from the back of the field to get their way through, which will be a little bit treacherous over the start of this event, as we have the Peps car now making its way through the final chicane, and now looking to round NASCAR's turn 3 and turn 4 before we get ourselves underway for racing action at Daytona International Raceway. The pace behind Rui Ferreira and Graphite Racing, Rudolf Nagel there for SimRC.de Strawberry, Adrian Rexnes and Carter Kundinger will find themselves in the top 4 as well. It'll be an interesting race for those at the front. Traffic will definitely be a factor in the early proceedings, but for the iRacing Group first safety car, it's about running onto pit road in the next couple of moments, and we get these fantastic Radical SR8s on for a championship season. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, you can get social with us with Facebook and on Twitter as well, as the pace car dives down onto pit road and the pace of Rui Ferreira is underway. The green flag drops and we are underway here at Daytona Beach, Florida. It's a clean start for Rui Ferreira on the brakes into turn number 1, and ultimately no real worries from the first pack as those trying to get around do so in the second pack as the Porsches go behind Alexander Wax as Jean-Philippe Gendron gets there behind in second. Eric Mickey Martin and David Haynes there in the mix as well, one of RaceSpotTV's very own, into turn number 1. No real issues at all from the Porsche field, and then the MX-5 field will be looking to set itself off in just a moment, and it already has through Gianni Quintilier, and they're 3 wide heading into turn number 1 for 3rd position. It's a clean start though by all except one huge ass car which has found itself in the grass, and that is Andrew Fawcett then in the early stages. 2 more spinners then going off, and one of them is Fisher Motorsports' Benjamin Fisher here, Nolan.
Now they were clean through turn 1, and unfortunately they didn't manage to make it through the International Horseshoe as clean as some people would have liked. Benjamin Fisher, we saw getting really checked up there. It really looks to me like just about everybody just checked up big time for some reason. I'm trying to look back to see if I can figure out what's going on. We actually have another car off right ahead of them, and that is Sergi Obiolis Leitza driving for Enigma ClubSport Porsche and their racing team. He just went off into the grass at the West Horseshoe. We have another car off, another Porsche into the grass right ahead of them. Shane Norton driving for the Apex Racing Group Red.
So the Porsches are the field that's struggling. We've seen Fisher, Boyles, and Shane Norton all fighting the grass, and also we've seen the likes of Andrew Fawcett hit as well, and we've seen a few vehicles just get involved in the early proceedings. That's not what they would have wanted to have seen by any standards, but at the front of the field we've got to keep an eye out on this, because this is going to be a very important battle for the front as Rui Ferreira holds on then after the opening lap just about. They were too wide in towards turns 1 and 2, a small kink before a much more difficult braking zone into the International Horseshoe for the second time, but Rui Ferreira finds himself at the front of this field. It's been this field of, shall we say, radicals that has been the best behaved, I think, so far of the bunch. They found themselves out front here early, Nolan. They haven't really had too much to worry about. Big lockup, though, in 4th position for Adrian Refsnes. And this vehicle sometimes is very difficult to get correct because it is such a very fidgety vehicle, especially with sometimes a little bit of bumps on this track, even though it has been smoothed over with its latest patch.
Well, it is a very twitchy car, to say the least, and anybody that's driven in the iRacing Radical Challenge will know very well the hazards of going over such bumps as you just mentioned. Stuff like the little kink right before the West Horseshoe, that's another corner where there's a bit of a dip, and that can really unsettle these cars as cars really give on the brakes. What did you see, Jake?
I've seen some MX-5s. One hit the inside retaining wall. That's Paul Cassidy for Gold Racing Team. The other is Martin Tailgard for the team of Vikings Sleipner car. And both of them getting involved at turn number 1. They were technically 4 wide. They were 3 wide, and ultimately Tailgard missed his braking point, ran straight into the back of Cassidy, and that spelled the end for the pair of them as they now look to get forward. So they were looking to go 3 wide. It didn't end up well there, and 3 wide, okay, yes, you've got a lot of room on the oval, but when it does shorten down, you've got to be so confident on your braking zone.
Absolutely. That's just kind of a case with any car at this track, especially for turns like turn 1 and the International Horseshoe. You do have to be extremely decisive, especially if you want to go for a position. As we just saw a fight for the lead here in the Radical field, and I believe we just saw Kevin Endeman for SROC Racing Orange just take the lead in your Radical field, but right behind them, they're still fighting out for second, and they're going to be fighting for position for a lot in the early minutes of this race.
They are. It's SimRC.de Strawberry that find the lead through Rudolf Nagel. SK Motorsports still fighting for second with Graphite Racing, but not flight at the moment there for Carter Kundinger as Rui Ferreira holds on to that second place. Enderman currently in fourth position. That bright orange vehicle will actually find himself in fifth because of, well, fourth because of restness at the moment, well, fifth because of restness at the moment, sorry. But right now, you have to say, it is in that little bit of changing hands moment, but they are already coming up on the Mazdas after 2 laps worth of racing, and that's a little bit concerning for a couple of drivers. Gianni Quintelier leads at the front of the field, Sarah Dove in second, Simon Eschers in third in that pack. But what will be concerning is how quickly they have come up upon those at that in the Mazdas, because they've got to go past them multiple times during this race as they are 3 wide for the Mazda lead.
3 wide for the Mazda lead already, and this could get interesting here as they throw themselves back out through I believe, yes, that is turn 1 there. Oh, look at this. They get so close to each other on the brakes here with Gianni Quintelier trying to keep his hold on the lead. We saw Sarah Dove right behind him trying to make them 3 wide again. She decided to back out of it. Simon SS driving for GT Temple Racing. Hashtag MX-5, he's still trying to fend himself off against SimSport News Racing. Howard Wires are directly beside him.
Yes, and Sarah Dove, arguably the queen of Scots when it comes to sim racing, takes a very shallow line into the West Horseshoe, and that is just going to allow the likes of Dirk Federman to get in. But look at this now, they're going to part the Red Seas here, these fields, so they don't know where to go. Pick a lane and stick on it as they get just about through, most of them through the MX-5's. Enderman starting to drop back a little bit in comparison, but just like that, they open up, they now pick a lane and they try and stick to it as much as possible. This is the difficulty about being an MX-5 driver in this sort of field, because the traffic does jump on you, and just like that, Rui Ferreira down to the inside, looking for the race lead back again, and has that inside line for the chicane. Can he get it on the brakes? You bet he can through the lefts and rights, and the lead is once more Graphites.
This is one of those things where, especially when live traffic comes into play, as we just saw, we're going to be seeing the lead for these different classes changing so much. Going back to your point of how the traffic really just jumps on you if you're an MX-5 driver, there's no other better way to put that. As look at this, they're trying to make it almost 3 wide for the Radical lead. And we just saw Carter Kundinger from SK Motorsports. He's decided to back out of it. And Rui Ferreira from Graphite Racing, he just lost his lead, but he's looking to fight back in the braking zone for turn number 1. Can he get in there and make it stick? The answer will be no. He will not be able to make that move stick. And it will be the lead to Sim RC Strawberry.
It will be, and that was very, very close, but back down to the inside at the International Horseshoe. A big lock up there from Rudolf Nagel, and straight through back goes Rui Ferreira, and Graphite take the lead once again. It changes so quickly around this track, and this is what they have to be careful of. Battling too hard and getting themselves involved in incidents. This is a 2-hour, 25-minute race. We've only been going about 7 minutes, and already I've seen about 5 changes for the race lead. They are fighting incredibly hard at the moment, and I have to feel at this stage that something has to give here, no.
And we saw Carter Kundinger almost give for SK Motorsports right behind him, just as you were saying that he took a little trip, got both right side tires in the grass, left side tires in the grass, and managed to get it back on the racing line, all well and good. And the lead, even if we're not fighting lap traffic, the lead is something that's going to change a lot throughout the course of this race, at least leading up to our first pit stop window, because the draft with these cars, it's just so severe. As you actually saw, Rudolf Nagel blink out of existence for a few seconds there, comes back in, luckily just in time for the braking zone, and Rui Ferreira, obviously sacrificing his lead, doesn't want to get into an incident early on. But this draft is so severe, especially on the big oval sections like where they're at now in NASCAR 384. You can lose so much ground on the car behind you so incredibly quickly in this car just because of the rear wing. And speaking of the devil, here comes Carter Kundinger charging up on the outside just to prove my point.
And look at this, the 2 behind are going to close in as well. It's pack racing here at Daytona. Brakes of 5, so late on the brakes goes Kundinger. He takes a couple cones and goes very hard in on his line. You just can't put it on the exit. Just like that, it's defended once again. Ferreira on the outside trying to fight along with it on the brakes into the next right-hander, and ultimately nothing doing up and under. Nope, just held up on the exit. Can't get the pace that's wanted. Keep an eye on the Porsches as well. Don't forget them. Battle for seconds on, because Gold Racing Team White and Bombshell Motorsports having a fight. It's Eric Mickey and also Jean-Philippe Gendron in this scrap behind Alexander Wax, who leads for the Porsche Basel by Saul Grensport eSport team. And on the brakes they go into turn number 1. Can Mickey get it around the outside? No, stays in second for now, or third for now.
And what we saw Eric Mickey, not only did he unfortunately not be able to make a stick at the outside, he actually got a little loose, it looked like. Maybe got in the power a bit too early, because Martin June for NAB Racing right behind him actually almost ran into the back of him. So that was a bit of a close call as well. We could have just had ourselves a big incident for that one as well.
We could have done, but ultimately we stay good at the moment. Worth noting that there are virtual safety cars that do pop up from time to time in this series. We haven't seen any of them just yet, but there will be a good warning for when a virtual safety car does get delivered. Back though to the front of your field, Rudolf Nagel currently holds a small advantage, and looking at how powerful the draft is, Carter Gundinger was trying to go through, didn't quite manage it, tried to go 3 wide towards turn number 1, ultimately backs out of it. Ferreira takes the lead. Here comes the SK Motorsports car to take second, and instantly the freight training begins into turn number 1 as they start umming and ahhing. It's now a pack of 6 at the front as Andy Banfield just behind for VAPEX Racing Group Blue loses out to Wayne Worthley in the Nibble Racing car, and there was certainly no bite out of the vehicle of Banfield.
You also need to keep in mind the brakes for these cars and these radicals, they lock up so easily. We actually saw Rudolf Nagel as well. He just locked up going into the International Horseshoe, and he almost lost it on the entry, so he managed to keep himself under control, and that it just goes to show how difficult these cars can be to control. It's ridiculous the amount of skill you actually need. Like, they certainly don't look that hard to drive, and these guys are making it look easy out here. But if you're getting in it for the first time like I did a while ago, oh my goodness, it's so much harder than one might expect.
It certainly is harder, as Gianni Quintelier is now starting to limp around and struggle on circuit a little bit. I didn't quite see what happened to him, but really does not have any pace at all in that Torque Freak racing car, and it's got very, very heavy damage on the machine, so I can only assume something has happened to Gianni Quintelier. I wonder if the replay will be able to pick up a look of that. I'm not too sure, but Quintelier, I think Torque Freak now are in a world of hurt from this point onwards here, Nolan.
I think maybe what would have happened is maybe one of the cars in front of him got a little loose, and that's certainly what it looks like. He just drove right into the front of it, because he doesn't have any damage on the back end. So it was either a bumper-to-bumper kind of a contact in which he rear-ended one of the other drivers on accident, or he ended up losing it himself and drove it into the barrier. It certainly doesn't seem to be affecting his performance terribly much, as he is fending off Wolfgang Will Denauer right behind him for Real Pixel Motorsport, and that is, of course, for 5th position in class.
Yeah, very, very true. 2:12.9 last time for Gianni Quintelier. In terms of his pace, though, that was a full 1.6 seconds off of his fastest lap, which is a 2:11.3 that we have seen so far. So certainly not the pace that he's able to showcase too often, but he'll be trying to manage that as well as he can. Back up to the front of your field, though. Got a nice little scrap going on as SK get around the outside of the Vikings machine of tailguard for Team Viking Sleipner, who was involved in that lap to instantly get around without too much worry at all. But here comes Rui Ferreira up to the high side, trying to go and make that move, and oh, pick your lane, MX-5. They Ricardo, Zonta, Hakkinen and Schumacher it, but still, unfortunately, Schumacher wins in that occasion because Carter Gundinger holds the position up very nicely and now can continue on his drive further forward in this one. And ultimately, it comes down to the fact that these drivers aren't able to really do much once they get out of the draft. So aero-dependent they are, Nolan, that these radicals have to have draft in order for them to overtake.
Especially on an open section like this, is Rui Ferreira jumping down to the apron trying to make something work down there. He's not going to be able to make anything work, though. And again, it's one of those things where even if you have a draft, you could jump out way too soon and end up losing all that time. You're going to have to find a way to work your way back up there. Tried to go for an over and under, it looked like, going into turn number 1. Didn't unfortunately manage to get that in there. As actually they both lock it up. Rui Ferreira locks it up going into the international horseshoe. And Carter Condinger also ran a little wide going into turn 1. Condinger did win out in that battle, as now Ferreira is being forced to defend against Rudolf Nagel behind him for third.
Very much at the moment, ultimately can't do anything into the West Horseshoe. Let's go back and look here at the Porsche category for the moment. Some good little battles going on. We've got David Haynes versus James Hewins. This is Torque Freak Racing Avon Rise against Hugh Jazz Blue at the moment, and the Hugh Jazz machine trying to get into position to make that move, but Slow Racing Team and Sasso Prozen is ultimately being the big debater in that one, as Hewins now decides to move then up high side to try and get this one going. Will Haynes follow? Answers no from the Australian. No chance of making that move happen. On the brakes into turn number 2. Go careful, as Slow Racing Team and Sasso Prozen ultimately cannot do much in that situation to stop the Torque Freak Avon Rise car getting through, and goodbye and good night. Losing it at the International Horseshoe just before, maybe thinking that it was rallycross, and ultimately that was a very weird situation. Caught the brakes whilst turning and locked up the rears as a stop and go comes in for the 201 machine, and that 201 is the Viking Schleifner car.
It looked like he tried to overshoot his braking point, and he knew he was going to drive to the back somebody, so he tried to just like spin it off to hopefully not collect anybody. That could have been big though if he ended up sliding back up into the rest of the field, because that would have been right onto the racing line. So luckily he managed to lock it up and keep it off the track. He doesn't have any damage on him though, so I feel like his tires might be a bit hot, but with the NASCARs 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, he'll be able to get back in this fight soon enough.
Certainly will. Side by side for the race lead in your MX-5s. It's GT Temple Racing against World of Sim Racing Team. So it's Danny Fonte against Simon Esses, as Esses has managed to hold the position for the moment. We've also got Bombshell Motorsport Inc. 286. That's Kyle Hayer behind the wheel in third position, just sitting there patiently, just waiting for the opportunity to develop in the next few laps or so, but ultimately don't need to push too hard just yet. We are only 15 minutes into this 2-hour and 25-minute race at the moment, as we have seen a spin for the 77 machine. That was SimRC.de Strawberry. That was just coming out onto the oval. That was from third position. Clips the curb on entry, nothing wrong. Trying to put the power down, the back steps away, and Rudolf Nagel will be going, well, how did that happen?
That is so unfortunate to see. We actually have had another spin just now, and that was Pedro Diaz that actually just spun out at the West Horseshoe. He overshot his braking point and once again got on the power just too early, or maybe got on the brakes too hard, and he also got the back end stepped around, so that allowed 3 of the MX-5s to go through. Of course, they're going to have to make way for him immediately now through NASCAR's 1 and 2. Going back to the point, though, where the cars for the Radicals can be so difficult to control, especially under braking. It's being demonstrated right now, you know, especially if you have your car unsettled under braking. You're going to have a nightmare of a time on exit to try to get on the power.
Oh, and a nightmare of a time some drivers are having. Just take Kevin Enderman, for example. He just had the biggest save I think he's had all of his sim racing career, because he had a massive loss at the bus stop chicane. Managed to keep it going at the cost of quite a bit of time in slow down penalties, but is still out there and running and having a pretty good run of things, it has to be said, at the moment. Hugh Jaskold, though, in the Porsche category, looking to get past PCDC Blue, Dario Galinka, and Andrew Fawcett in a scrap, but Fawcett finds himself comfortably way through, as there is a spin.
That was Shane Norton that just spun around, trying to get on the power out of the final corner leading up to NASCAR 1 and 2, and he actually just about took out poor Carter Condinger from SK Motorsports, who had just actually made a move for the lead in your Radical category, so he had to drop back a ton, and he was trying to work his way back up now to Rui Ferreira.
Wow, and that just tells you just how dangerous traffic sometimes can be. 60-second stop and hold comes in for the 168 machine. That one, by my recollection, the 138 machine, sorry, is Hugh Jazz Blue. That's the one with David Haynes, and that was for lap number 1, I would have thought. So he's got a big, long stop and hold, which will be affecting the way that his racing is going to go. But once more side by side for the race lead. It seems that the contact for Kundinger and SK Motorsports won't mean too much at all, because straight down the inside and back into the race lead against Graphite Racing's Rui Ferreira. So top three split at the moment at the front of your field by just half a second at the moment. In your Porsche category, Alexander Wax currently holds himself probably about half a second's worth of advantage as the top three battle it out. And in your MX-5 field right now, Simon Essers currently holds his own little bit of a three-take moment as they try and go on, as you've spotted SK Motorsports almost losing the lead.
Yeah, it's another one of those incidents where you unsettled the car on braking and you unsettled even further on exit. You got the back end, stepped out a little bit through the international horseshoe, and then almost spun around again trying to get out the power while trying to get around Nicolas Pacheco in his World of Sim Racing Mazda Miata. And Rui Ferreira unfortunately didn't manage to take advantage of that. He had to back off to avoid running into the back of Cardigan Dinger, who actually also ran really wide at the West horseshoe as well. And that'll allow Rui Ferreira to the lead for now, but of course, we're going to see SK Motorsport fighting back on the outside onto the back straightaway here, onto the bus stop chicane.
Breakthrough. Rui Ferreira does not want to go too wide at the bus stop, especially with Mazda traffic in front, which they do have to slow down for a little bit. And this is going to be about who gets the best run off of the exit. Answer is clearly Rui Ferreira, who was patient enough to wait with that as a stop and go, is there for the number 33 machine now. And I believe that which is the Apex Racing Group Red and Shane Norton, they will get a 30-second stop and go penalty, as now through to the race lead once more goes Graphite Racing as they keep changing at the front of this field, but it's not decisive. SK come back down the inside as they get the position straight back again, and just like that, it's a really, really tough scrap at the front of this field. But let's talk about Porsche Basel just for a moment by Saul Brentsport Esports here, Nolan, because right now they're under pressure for probably the first time this race for the race leader Jean-Philippe Genderon for Gold Racing Team White. Looks down to the inside, and they will stay too wide when it comes to the chicane as Martin Yoon just waits on the outside for NAB Racing.
Martin Yoon, I think his best opportunity for now is because you can clearly see how hard Jean-Philippe Gendron and Alexandre Wax are fighting in front of him. I think his best choice would be now to just back off just a little bit, wait for them to crash each other, and then just go for the lead at this point. Because at this point, it's one of those instances where somebody has to give. As they're going to be side by side once more across the start-finish line down into turn number one. Who can capitalize on the situation? Almost clap doors a little bit there. And Jean-Philippe Gendron runs really wide in turn number one, almost loses the car, and that forces Martin Yoon to back off for NAB Racing. He might try to look for something here in the International Horseshoe.
He might, but he decides against it then after that little bit of a slide, starting to just see a few errors creep in, which is not what these drivers would have been hoping for, but they were able to keep that one going at the front of the field, which is vital in terms of this one. But now the front of the field for the overall race has just splintered out a little bit. Still got battling though. Andy Banfield versus Rudolf Nagel. This one is for 6th and 7th position, and Nagel is going to be under pressure as they head into the tri-oval for the 13th time here in this event. Gonna look on the high side is the Apex Racing Group car, but ultimately backs out of it. Wasn't in a position to really strike. Nibble Racing just waiting in the wings as well, as we have seen a couple of vehicles not make it through the early stages. One is Gold Racing Team, the other is the German Sim Racing Orange car, so a couple of retirees in the early goings.
Well, that's the sort of thing that you can expect in multi-class racing, especially when you have 3 different classes that have such a severe speed difference, like the Radicals, Porsches, Mazdas, like they're showing us now. And you can even see just on the NASCAR almost how much of a difference there is in speed. Andy Banfield runs really wide for 7th place overall. That allowed Wayne Nortley to get on his right side. Unfortunately, means he does not have the advantage coming out of the road course section of this track. Andy Banfield locked up again, going into the corner. And I'm going to go back to it. I'm probably going to keep repeating myself like a broken record. The cars are so easy to lock up, and it's probably the easiest way you can lose positions.
It certainly is, and we're starting to see that at the moment. with the SimRC the Apex nibble battle, as now Wayne Wortley will try and think about a move into the chicane, but ultimately not close enough to make anything happen. So we'll have to wait for a better opportunity to arise later on in the lap, potentially in towards turn number 1 out on circuit. Back though to the start finish, or to your Porsche category, because it has been a little bit of a waiting game for some. In contrast though, for 5th and 6th in class, you've got German Sim Racing Blue against the Real Pixel Motorsports car Jean-Philippe Weid against Matty Wolf, as right now it seems that German Sim Racing find themselves just enough of a gap in front, but onto the oval, a lot of change can happen.
Absolutely, and with the draft of 2 cars behind you, you can lose what gap you have very quickly, and you really only need to be within a second in order to get that draft back. And it is something that a lot of these good drivers are going to have to look out for, especially on the drafts. Actually, Nora Shelf-Thout actually just got a slowdown penalty exiting the bus stop chicane, so she is going to lose out on a ton of spots, or he, excuse me if I got that wrong, I'm so sorry. Actually, he's actually a lap down already, because he is making way for a lot of these drivers, still trying to struggle with that slowdown penalty, though, as he's having to let a Miata through now, just so we can clear it.
Yeah, and ultimately decides that pit road is probably going to be the better place to go in terms of this one, and decides, yeah, it's time to dive down onto pit road to make something happen. So, seen a couple of vehicles down on pit road, and one of them is Kartakundinger, and that does not look like a very, very healthy vehicle down on pit road either. So, did something happen? Was all on his own, and I think something's happened between turn number 1 potentially, because, or diving down to lane, because that is a big incident. As Nolan, you've spotted it.
I unfortunately did. He had a little bit of damage on the back end, so I don't know where that came from. But I know when he was going through the kink before the International Horseshoe, he got onto the curb, a little bit close to that pit wall, just lost the back end, and just drove it head on into the Armco barrier. So, fortunate end for his day, but that is where all of the damage came through, and that is how he lost out on the race lead.
It's a shame to see that happen for him, but sometimes those are the ways of racing. Sometimes they go. Stefan Nobes at the moment, though, in his own little scrap for WR Racing B in that white vehicle, has to be careful and avoid Lewis Emerton and the SimSport News Racing powered by iZone Green Porsche, as he's trying to fight Kevin Enderman and the S-Rock Racing Orange Machine. Ultimately, nothing doing at the moment. Just going to have to play that patience game, maybe even wait for the pit stop window that will open up in the next 15 minutes or so, because they have been going for 26 minutes, and I think a lot of the drivers now will be waiting for that pit window to strike.
This pit window could be the key to decide who could win the race. It's one of those things where it can be decided early on. It could be decided later on. The pit stops can be extremely vital, especially in these long races such as this one. And we're actually seeing a replay now. I believe this will show you the incident that occurred with SK Motorsports and Carter Condinger losing out on the lead to the race.
Yes, and it's into turn number 1 that we see it in through the kink, then into turn number 2. No real problems, but it's out of 2 where the issues start to arise, and ultimately it's a big smash into the Armco, and just like that, that pretty much says that's all, folks, in terms of this one. No fast repairs in this series, and that is ultimately going to be the big hurting point over the course of this event. When you get a big incident like that, you don't want to see anyone else involved. Fortunately, there wasn't, but really an incident that shouldn't really be happening, especially through the S's section. If there's not enough downforce on that vehicle, then they are in trouble.
I'd say even if you have a lot of downforce, you can still be in trouble, just because with the gravel you have going through the S's there on the inside, right next to the pit wall, it can mean that you can lose the back end so quickly, because the car will jump up a little bit. It's going to hit the ground because it comes down so fast, and that alone can be enough to unsettle the car. So I feel like it's one of those incidents where you could just be in trouble either way.
Very much so. Carhair for Bombshell Motorsports Inc. now trying to think about second position in your MX-5 category as they make their way through 3 and 4 to the tri-oval once again and looking for something to be a move. And right now Carhair does not find himself with anything too brilliant right now, just happy to sit, happy to wait. There's a bit of traffic that's going to come blasting on by, and actually the Porsches can close down on those fantastically quick SR8 in the early goings or the final goings of straights, and just like that there's a little bit of a checkup behind the MX-5s. They're all trying to ignore everybody to try and get through, and that was very telling from the leaderboard as Ross Banfield tries to go around the outside, and ultimately the Porsches have overtaken the SR8, which is more surprising than I thought it would be.
Al, don't count your chickens yet, because they're still trying to thread their way through. The Mazda somehow managed to do that. Lee Ward forced to back out, and he actually had to go onto the grass to avoid one of the Miatas, and that actually allowed Jean-Philippe Gouin to close right in to Matty Wolff, and he's going to be looking for to make up some time here. Oh, and cuts off Ross Banfield in that Apex Racing Group Purple Radical right behind him. No doubt he's not going to be terribly happy about that.
You have to remember that this is for driver position at the moment, and that's what's going to be hurting, is that he doesn't actually have to let that vehicle through, and it's telling when it comes to the straights, because there's not enough straight line speed to get past the Porsche, which has certainly a lot more grunt, it seems, at this stage. So it seems that the Porsches, they have the ability to stay with the likes of the Radicals when it comes to top end speed, and Matty Wolff holding off Jean-Philippe Gouin at the moment. It's really that high-speed downforce which is what is keeping these Radicals right up in front. But once they get on the oval, nope, there's no chance we can make the move. We don't have the power.
It's one of those things where it can make lapping cars on the oval very frustrating, especially in the kind of situation we're seeing right now for the Radicals and the Porsches, because you've seen it a couple times when they tried to poke the nose out. They got all the cornering speed in the road course, but like you said, the Porsches, they just have more straight line speed. The Jean-Philippe Gouin runs wide, almost, I think he might have been doing that to let Ross Banfield through, and Banfield finally clears him. And he's not going to have to worry, though, because Matty Wolff, he's going to have himself some work yet to do. And actually, Jean-Philippe Gouin locks it up, going into the International Horseshoe, manages to keep it all right. He's flashing his lights. I think might be the Radical, does manage to clear Matty Wolff on the right side, and that has split that battle for 14th place overall up.
It has split that battle up, and that's not ideal in the long term for them, but they're splitting up that battle, and they're doing a good job at splitting that up. At the front of your Porsche field, though, Alexander Wax under pressure because he's got the gold Racing Team white car of Jean-Philippe Gendron just behind, as actually Vide spins it up, and that wasn't part of the script. So that real pixel car looking a lot more worse for wear than wanted, and actually spun it again. So West Horseshoe didn't work out, looped it, and actually loops it for a second time as well, trying to put the power down, and Jean-Philippe Vide will not be too happy at the way he's just driven that last section.
Absolutely not, and he has lost out on tons of time and positions. It's just one of those very costly mistakes that it's just, you never want to see that happen as a driver, as we are going to look back up now to your lead for the Porsches, as they have closed the gap in, and now we could have ourselves a three-way battle for your Porsche lead, tightening up here in just a few moments.
Oh yes, we could. Alexander Wax for Porsche Bars by Silver Sports, Jean-Philippe Gendron, Gold Racing Team White, Martin Yoon for NAB Racing. All three of them currently running themselves around the 147 pace mark. Same said for Eric Mickey in the Bombshell Motorsports in 186, just sitting in the background and waiting for their chance, or his chance, to find himself back with the group, and ultimately does not see as much so far here in this event. But you have to keep wondering here, how will this race pan out for those in this Porsche category? The first pit stop coming up pretty soon for them, so I think they have to be a little bit concerned about the fact that they haven't really had that opportunity to break away. Is now looking down to the inside, comes Genderon for Gold Racing Team White, but again, forced to back out of it on the brakes, not confident enough to go down the inside at the chicane. And all this is doing is allowing other vehicles to close up and have that chance with every little half attempt.
It does allow you to close in, and the bus stop chicane is just one of those corners where you don't want to try to pass because there is no way to pass in the chicane. You got a single line groove throughout the entirety of that corner as they're going to try to get so close to the Miata trying to get around him, and somehow Alexander Wax manages to hang on to his lead and fend off against Jean-Philippe Gendron. Martin June, he is being incredibly patient, and I will give him props to that because I have seen him have opportunities to make up positions here or there. He's being nice and patient though because he recognizes we've still got an hour and 50 minutes left in the race. That is a long time because these cars are lapping around 143 to 146 each. So there's plenty of time to work it up, so don't worry about making up positions early because you most likely will be able to get it later on if you just conserve early on.
And that's what it is. It's the conservation of fuel and tyres, which has been interesting to see at the moment, but it will get a little bit more pronounced over the next 10 minutes or so. Drivers can't afford to have too many mistakes when it comes to the racing action out on track. We have seen the change though to second position in your MX-5 because Danny Fonte has lost the position to Kyle Hare as Bombshell now find themselves in a pretty good position now in second place. But all that fighting has meant that Simon Esses has managed to just break away for GT Temple Racing, and the German-based team now can start running away with things. At the moment, they now hold themselves probably about a 2-second gap at the front of the field.
Now, one thing that we should remember about the draft for the Miatas is that we've talked a lot about how the draft is extremely powerful for cars like the Porsche and the Radicals. There isn't a whole lot of draft going on with these Miatas here, just because they don't have a lot of downforce on them to begin with. So stuff like the Oval, they do have some draft, of course, as every car does, but just not nearly enough to actually have it to be relevant in a sense. And it's one of those situations where you really have to be decisive in the road course section. That's where we're going to be seeing most of our position changes in the Miata field, I would assume, just because you really can't use the draft as powerfully as you would be able to if you were on the Oval.
And that Oval, all about power, it's all about punching that hole, and that's why you see the likes of NASCAR skitter around at about over 300 kilometers an hour, trying to make sure that they just push that extra little millimeter. But still, it seems that this race is far from over for a lot of drivers. We've seen a few penalties shake up this field one way or another, but we have seen some pretty good racing out on track, like Slow Racing Team versus Torque Freak Racing Avon Rise, for example, as Avon Rise now start to pull away their vehicle from the Slow Racing Team machine. So there have been gaps as we do see another little battle. Real Pixel against SimSport News as Louis Emerton now gets down the inside of Jean-Philippe Vide. Vide still trying to fight it on the outside and ultimately looking for that Insider International, but there's no need to look at that because off goes Lewis Emerton into the grass, and just being too greedy on entry, it's so easy to spin up that Porsche, and around he went.
And it's something that we've already seen several times happen, especially in the International Horseshoe. It's something we're going to continue to see throughout this race, especially in the closing half hour or so, when a lot of these drivers start to get really, really aggressive for position. It's just, again, it's one of those situations where it can vary depending on the cars, but especially with the Porsches, you can't be too greedy on exit. As actually, Jean-Philippe Vide has just spun around again on the exit of the Oval. On the exit of the road course going to the Oval, and that was all on his own. Tried to get on the power too early. It's just one of those similar situations we've seen all day. It's just so unfortunate that we continue to see it happen, especially for drivers like Jean-Philippe Vide.
Yeah, and Vide will not be too pleased at the way that he's driving, and of course there is no limit on incidents, but he is certainly racking up as many points as he possibly can, it seems, at this stage, the amount of spins that he has been having. Battle for the Porsche lead, though they were side by side into turn one, but now as they make the West Horseshoe, it seems Alexander Wax is still content on holding position at the front of the field and ultimately not showcasing that he's got the ability to run away. And now Wax has to be really careful about the way that he challenges the next section of this event. The pit stop window coming very, very closely for these vehicles. Now they make their way to the chicane once again, and now Alexander Wax will be under pressure once again from Jean-Philippe Gendron.
Well, and I do agree with you, Alexander Wax hasn't really portrayed how good he is at pulling away on the oval. I will say I do see that he is really good at demonstrating how good he is at pulling away in the road course, because he does manage to get a jump on these guys when it comes to the road course, and that's what allows him to actually stay in front, because the draft that Jean-Philippe Gendron has, it's just not enough to catch up to Alexander Wax on the oval. He can get side by side, but Wax just seems to be better on the road course, probably because he can dictate the line a bit more, because he is the driver defending us. Here we go again, Jean-Philippe Gendron. He's going to catch right up to him. He's not going to make the move, though. He's going to make a look, but he's going to have to stay behind there, wait patiently for another chance.
Yeah, another lap goes by without any move, as out of pit road comes Tobias Rix for German Disaster Racing. So the Porsches may be thinking about, okay, pit stop window time. We may be starting to hit that in the next couple of moments, with more and more trickling off down onto pit road. A very difficult pit road as well. You literally just jump off of the racing line and hope that you can slow it down. It's one of the toughest zones, I think, in sim racing to brake for, mainly because it is such a high speed you come from, and it's almost an instant contrast.
And I'll try telling that to the guys that race up at the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series. They're something else, I'm telling you. They are coming at speeds much faster, and they can manage it all right. But I do agree with you. It is a very difficult pit entrance nonetheless, just because of the high speeds that you can come off the oval on. You really have to try to brake as fast as you possibly can without locking it up. Because of course, if you lock it up at all, you're going to find yourself going into the grass instead of the pit lane, in which case you're going to have to bail out and go around again.
Yeah, you certainly do. Gap at the front of the field then is up to 7.7 seconds between Graphite Racing and PCDC Motorsports Yellow. So Adrian Resnes versus Rui Ferreira. The gap is next to nothing in your battle for the overall lead of Porsche. About 6-7 tenths of a second now as Jean-Philippe Gendron starts to fall backwards a little bit. And in your Mazda category, Simon Esses is just about got a second's worth of gap to Kyle Heyer, who has been actually doing really well over the last couple of laps. Took a full 7/10 of a second off that last time by, and Simon Esses now probably is going to be sharing at least a little bit of draft with Kyle Heyer.
Might just about saw a shake-up for position number 2 in your Porsche field as well, when a lap car almost got in the way. That was, of course, Martin June that tried to make a move going into turn number 1 on Jean-Philippe Gendron. Gendron ran wide, following Tobias Ritt with German Disaster Racing, and unfortunately, June did get a bit abruptly cut off by Jean-Philippe Gendron for Gold Racing Team White.
Did get a little bit cut off, but ultimately was able to continue on with his race. So Jean-Philippe Gendron maintained second, Uni in third, but they are now about to get lapped by Rui Ferreira at the front of the field. So here's where the field does seem to change. Not much difference to be seen between the Porsches. Uh-oh, there's Alexander Wax, who goes for a ride. Leader completely changes. An unforced error coming onto the oval, and a little wiggle going through, never fully corrected the vehicle, and as such onto the banking. Only the spin gets exacerbated, and just like that, Alexander Wax is out of the race lead for Porsches.
And just as you were saying, we weren't seeing the big shake-up for the position in the Porsche field as well. Bit of a commentator's curse going on, but this could mean that we have a fight for the lead now with Jean-Philippe Gendron and, of course, Martin June, who is going to be, he might be fighting a little harder than we've seen him so far. Rui Ferreira being forced to tuck right back in behind the Porsches as he tries to make a move to the inside now of turn number 1, but nope, again, he's going to have to tuck back in. He's going to have to wait to the road course to make his move.
He is, but the issue is he's got a category battle lead as Yoon allows Gendron to get through on the inside and effectively gives up that run for that lap by, as straight on the accelerator. So much better when it comes to that top end of acceleration is that much lighter, much more nimble, much more dynamic graphite racing car, and as such, straight away, the Gold Racing Team White Machine has no chance of staying anywhere near as they head through the infield section on their 25th lap of this event. Leaders 26th with Rui Ferreira, but they are dealing with traffic. They are navigating it rather well at this stage, but they are playing that waiting game, which, as we all know, they have to continuously do around this track. It's worth noting as well, Porsche's definitely the most popular car when it comes to this field. There are more Porsches than anything else out there on circuit.
Absolutely, and I can understand why it's a popular car. You know, the Radical is extremely fast, but, you know, while the Radical's fast, it can be difficult to control under braking and under acceleration, as we've seen a couple times already in the race. And the Miatas, well, the Miatas are, of course, one of the cars that just originally started for the road course racing, so people do like the Miatas. I like racing the Miatas, granted. They are a bit slow, though, and the Porsche GT3s, I feel like they're a nice little mix right in the middle. So if I was on this field, I'd probably drive in one of the Porsche GT3 cars as well. They are an extremely fun car to drive, and it can be such a joy to be able to just be in the middle. That way you don't have as much traffic to worry about at any rate as well.
Battle for your MX-5 lead, though, is firmly on at this stage. Simon Esses versus Kyle Heyer for Bombshell Motorsports Inc. And right now, Bombshell find themselves just hoping that there's a move coming, maybe at the West Horseshoe, but it is fully defended on entry there by Esses, who does slow things up slightly. No real run off the exit. A warning comes in for the 138 machine. That Fudas blue car once again getting a warning, but through the left-hander onto the oval come your MX-5s once again, and a big wide line taken by Kyle Heyer, just unable to point the vehicle in the direction that he wants to there, ultimately loses or gains an extra few meters in terms of his run, which means he is going to be just that little bit slow when it comes to what he's able to do. But look at how he closes down in 3/10, 2/10, 1/10. Does he look to the outside? No, he waits for turn one.
And good move on Kyle Heyer to wait for turn one. And I think one of the reasons why I actually ran wide is because he was trying to get a few extra miles an hour of speed, and it certainly did help him out. You know, he did gain, he was a good like 4 miles an hour faster than Simon Esches going all the way down through the back straightaway of the NASCAR Oval. He's going to be right there in the draft, so he is definitely in the wings looking to make a move. Will that Miata be able to make the move is the question, or will Esches be able to defend just enough to keep him at bay? That's what it's beginning to look like for me.
Over 200 kilometers an hour. They head at 203, buffering out at top speeds, 205, 206. Now looking to try and smash the brakes, and ultimately nothing coming in terms of a move into turn number one as the overall race leader just approaches from behind at this stage. Down on pit road, Tobias Rick comes in once again, and now Alexander Wax decides it's time from third position to make his first pit stop of the day after 46 minutes worth of racing. It's about pit stop time here, and we are fully starting to expect it.
And again, we are in the pit window now, and it's going to be one of those situations where one driver's going to come in, everybody's going to come in. It's something extremely common, especially on the longer races such as this one. I am keeping an eye on that battle for first, though, in your Miata field, because they are going to have to struggle here, as here comes the fight for the lead of their Porsche field right alongside them, actually. That could shake things up for your Porsche field as well, as they're all 5 of them, 6 actually, if you count the Radical behind them, very deep on the brakes. The Miatas, of course, swinging wide to make room for the faster cars. Pit stops, though, could play into effect here, and I do wonder, when are these Miatas going to have to come down to make their own pit stops?
When, indeed, and with that 55% fuel tank, we saw them go 90 minutes earlier on in this, earlier on today at the Raw before the 24 with an unlimited fuel tank, so I would say pretty soon would be a very logical estimation. But right now, Jean-Philippe Gendron under pressure for the lead, is now trying to go up high and around is Adrian Resnes, but he will suddenly find that he is bereft of top speed on the high line and will have to duck back into the toe to try and make that move. But ultimately, again, in a good position to make it, but the race leader dives down onto pit road, so Gendron decides it's time, and he is very, very cautious with that cone, dropping quite a few kilometers an hour to try and make that stop work, and ultimately just about got it slowed down as out of pit road comes the German sim racing blue DGFX car along with WR Racing and Steen Rene Christiansen behind the wheel. So all of a sudden it's changed here for your Porsche team. Martin Yoon leads only because of the pit stop window.
And that pit stop window could shake things up here. I do wonder if that other driver was going in to make, maybe just to go and make an undercut, like go for an over and under. Because you got to keep in mind, he could come out quite a bit further ahead of Martin Yoon when he comes in for his pit stop, because he's got the fresher tires, so he does have a little bit more pace, especially in the road course. So that could actually cost Martin Yoon not only the lead once more, but so much more time, especially if he stays out for more than another lap or two.
Tires and a lot more than that. New drivers as well, as René Kierkoff is now behind the Porsche Basel by Silbrand Sports cars. In comes Jean-Philippe Vai, the likes of Kim Christie and Sevening, Real Pixel 2. Got the likes of Marco Spiller looking to try and get out of pit road, as just looking at where Gold Racing Team White come out with Taj Edwards behind the wheel. The answer is clearly ahead of rivals. So very good stop from them. They get out and away and looking to try and just get that gap going. And I have to wonder when we're going to start seeing some pit stops. The ones going the longest, of course, are those towards the front, as Martin Yoon finally decides to dive down onto lane with Shane Norton in tow, who hits his box rather early. Yoon looking for his marks then on the left-hand side, and will pull over through to look for his line of sight. Gets in on the brakes, and now tyres, fuel, and maybe a driver change.
Yep, it's going to be a driver change indeed, and now we got Frank van Brandwijck that's going to be hopping into that NAV racing car. Can he come out though in front of that other Porsche that we just saw come in a little while ago? That's going to be one of the big questions here, because we can see him. He is coming around, and I do believe he probably just got around. I believe it was Eric Bourdois that he was fighting for originally for the lead. Of course, not originally, but that car was the one that was fighting originally.
Yes, it was. SK was involved in a leading battle, but not much so anymore. But they're going too wide, which isn't going to be helpful. But Taj Edwards and Gold Racing Team White need to get forward and have as little resistance as possible when it comes to this event. And ultimately, they are starting to find it at the moment difficult. So through goes Edwards. Where is NAV Racing by example? They're heading themselves through turn number 1 right now. I think Frank van Brandwijck has got the jump on the overcut, and they very firmly have. So NAV Racing retain the racing lead as we got a slow Radical out on circuit somewhere. Didn't quite catch who, what, or where that was, but right now turn 4 is seemingly the order of what we've got, and ultimately I don't quite think I've seen that one, and it was on pit entry, I think, there, Nolan, that we're having a look at.
Yeah, I did see Steen Rene Christiansen. He was extremely slow. He was on the apron all the way through turn 4. I had his pit limiter on, actually, interestingly enough. So he was extremely slow all the way through, and then we actually had a near incident where Ross Banfield for VAPEX Racing Group Purple actually almost drove into him trying to get onto the pit limiter himself. So now Christensen is in for pit road. I'm still trying to figure out what happened there.
I'm starting to figure that out as well, and it's not ideal, but a stop and go comes in for the 199. That's Real Pixel Motorsport 2. Jacob Lehman will have to come in and try and make another stop, and this is what's going to be frustrating as your race leader has come in and out of pit road. Graphite Racing have made that stop as PCDC Yellow have come in. Also SimRC.de Strawberry, S-Rock Racing. I think we've seen probably the limit of making stops for your field in terms of your Radicals cars. Around 52 minutes the Graphite Racing car managed, and it's Tom Van Putten now behind the wheel.
Tom Van Putten, he's going to have some work ahead of him, though, because he does have another Radical that's going to be a lap down, I believe. He's got 3 Porsches that are all a lap down. still trying to keep an eye on Steven Christensen because he is still fairly slow considering the pace that the Radicals can get. So I am very, very curious as to what happened there. Meanwhile, we are going to look further up front, I do believe
We are, because we saw just how close drivers could be coming on to pit road. We've got one vehicle off in the gravel, or in the grass, sorry, and that's Alex Coffard for Huge As Gold, who takes a little bit of a trip through the grass and was getting around some lap traffic, was trying to deal with an MX-5 on the outside, outbroke himself because of how late the MX-5 can brake, mainly due to the fact that they don't go as fast, and Coffard ultimately coughs up and loses a little bit of time because of it, and that's not ideal for that Porsche. But it's the little things in endurance racing which I think a lot of drivers do need to learn, is that, you know, different vehicles have different braking points. You can't really use other vehicles on track as a braking mark.
I think it's a mistake that I think every sim racer has made at least once in their lifetime at some point for their sim racing careers. And we just saw Alex Coffard unfortunately make that same mistake, you know, like, because oftentimes when you're trying to get around a lap car, if it's a single class race and you search for their braking point and you try to imagine just a tad later so you can get around them in the corner. Unfortunately, if you got such a drastically difference in speed, such as the Porsche and the Miata, you will outbrake yourself every single time if you try to match their braking point, because they don't go as fast. Sure, they don't have stronger brakes, but they just don't go as fast. They do have the ability to brake later, no matter where you are.
You've also seen your MX-5s come in. It's a battle of two at the front of your MX-5 field, and they've both changed drivers. So Jörg Vasmus behind the wheel for GT Temple, and then Finian de Cunha in for Bombshell Motorsport Inc. So for the moment, it seems that these two are the ones having their own scrap in MX-5, and it's a fair margin away for the next one, which seemingly seems to be Diego Vasquez of World of Sim Racing Team Junior, who is a lap down. So a very demanding advantage, I think is the word to say, for the moment for Bombshell and GT Temple.
And right behind him is, of course, coming up on your race leader, Tom Van Put for Graphite Racing. He's going to have to keep an eye out for these two Miatas here. They're trying to fight it out with each other for their class lead here. And that does seem to be the case. Yeah, everybody's going to get through them just about cleanly. And Jörg Vasmus is, of course, going to have to be on defense for turn number 1. I actually just saw right ahead of him Marcel Mersa just passed Justin Weinberg in the Radicals. So Weinberg definitely off the pace.
Yeah, and that is very telling for Wittenberg. He is struggling, as we have seen two vehicles a long way down the order. One of them is the PCDC Motorsports red car, but Nystrom on pit road, and probably going to be there for a very long while as well. So not ideal, but we'll continue on this event as we look at the 95 machine. Bad Cactus Racing Chola Justin Weinberg actually just had himself an incident, I just think, there into the West Horseshoe, and was approaching one of the Porsches and locked it up and actually clipped that Porsche of Marcel Mercer and Real Pixel Motorsport 3. That wasn't good at all in terms of that, and I think that has not really caused too much else, but Real Pixel have just been dropping backwards and backwards through no fault of their own, really.
Yeah, it's another one of those incidents where he got the car unsettled under braking, because the second he actually jumped on the brakes, he made a big attempt to turn the car, and that is just, of course, the one thing you never want to do, especially in a Radical. You cannot turn while you're braking with the Radical at all. We're going to see exactly like what happened. I am a bit concerned he might get a warning, or at least a penalty, for an unsafe re-entry to the racing track, because he did almost get in the way of another Radical coming up on him. So I am a bit concerned, but at this point in time, it doesn't look like he is going to be home free, apart from that damage on the rear wing.
Very true. Got a nice little battle going on in your Porsche category between Florian Hohn in the German sim racing friends DGFX car and Thomas Erzen, the Slow Racing team, as Slow currently just holding that advantage in 4th position, just having a very nice and solid drive at this stage. We're going to go on board with Florian Hohn in the 188. Let's take you RaceSpotTV fan immersion. Well, we've been seeing how that battle has been developing in your Porsche field, and German sim racing are losing a lot of time to slow racing in the long and the short. A full second locked off on the last lap. We're currently over an hour through this 2-hour and 25-minute race, the first round, of course, of the ClubSport Series presented by DGFX. And we have seen some pretty good racing in the opening hour. Graphite Racing have the lead of the race overall from SimRC.de Strawberry. That gap was 6.7 seconds, but Tom Van Put is being put in his place at the moment by Patrick Young, who is closing down at an extraordinary rate of knots at the moment. The gap was 6.7 seconds at the front of the field. The gap now, as they cross the line, is 5 seconds only. Patrick Young is the fastest man on track, and by a fair distance as well here.
Absolutely, and that could really play in big time with our fight for the overall lead. If he keeps closing in the way he does, he'll be up and fighting with Graphite Racing for the lead in a mere 3 or 4 laps. And when you think about it, there really isn't all that much. He's actually closing in a lot faster than I thought. He could catch within 2 laps of this rate, because we saw Graphite Racing is currently going into the West Horseshoe right now. And of course, Patrick Young, he just went to the West Horseshoe as well, so he is closing in at an astonishingly fast pace. So you can see him right there. There he is, right at the edge. And that Radical you saw disappearing off at the bottom of your screen there, that was, of course, your race leader.
Yes, and Patrick Young is one of those drivers who is up there, I'd say, as a top caliber driver. Certainly has that pace in a lot of vehicles to get up there at a level and push and attack, and that's what Patrick Young has been known to do time and time again. So we'll see how Young will battle this one out in the latter state, or the later stages of this race, as this one continues to go on. In your Porsche field, it is Frank van Brandwijk who leads this one for NAB Racing as they approach Disabled Motorsports and Hugh Gas Gold to put them a lap down. The gap is pretty substantial at the moment over Gold Racing Team White, and the difference in lap times is also telling. 0.8 of a second difference that last time by. NAB Racing are pulling away.
That's exactly what they wanted to see, and remember how we discussed how perhaps NAB Racing might have lost out on their lead from that last pit stop run. Well, it turns out they didn't, and it was wise of them to stay out for that lap or 2 longer, because they're in the lead and they are indeed pulling away. They are going to have to work at pulling Alex Crawford right ahead of them a lap down from Hugh Gas Gold. But after that, they're going to be home free for a good little while yet.
And in your MX-5 category, it's George Vasmus who finds himself in a good place, as Finian de Luna in second position, just sitting in behind, as Bombshell did find 1.4 seconds on the last lap compared to GT Temple. The MX-5s have been the sleeper battle. We haven't seen too much of them, but they have been very, very close, as we are going to see SimRC.de Strawberry all of a sudden really pounce on Graphite Racing. 2.6 seconds it was, but now it comes down to under 1.5 seconds.
With that bus stop chicane that they're going to be throwing in here, Patrick Young should be able to get the jump that he needs in order to get by Tom Van Put, who, of course, you can see is struggling with the Porsche and actually has to check up big time for the Porsche going into the bus stop chicane. That allows Patrick Young to close in so much, and this could be a battle for the lead here going even into turn number 1. And here we go. Our fight for the overall lead. Tom Van Put staying on the high side up there for now. He's going to slowly drop down to the apron. He doesn't want to make it too quick and scrub off a whole lot of speed.
Does not, but now Young starts to pick up the pace, and there is how you lose 2.6 seconds in the space of a lap, and had to check up because of the Torque Freak Magex car, and that was Philip Roberts. Didn't have anywhere to go to make that. He was clean through otherwise, but Patrick Young saw what was happening, couldn't make a rash decision, took the better of both worlds and backed out of it, but clearly has the pace to get past Graphite as and when they choose.
And that is one of those moments where you just go and you look away because you don't want to see how that is going to turn out. Luckily managed to somehow make it through. Patrick Young should be able to close in a lot here coming out of this chicane here as they head back down through that West Horseshoe. and down through to the last corner of the road course, with the exception of the bus stop chicane. Onto the back straightaway, excuse me, into NASCAR 1 and 2. They're going to come now. Young looking for another exit, but he's not going to have it quite there. But with the severe driving you get with these cars, place his cards right, he'll have the lead by the front straightaway.
And tucked underneath, backs out of it initially, but is looking to try and just pounce on the magic maneuver against Tom Van Putt. Really tucked underneath, looking for the chance as they get themselves towards the braking zone of this left-hander. They hit it very early on the brakes as Patrick Young, trying to carry as much speed to make the run off of the exit, and that's where he wants to go and make that move. And ultimately, he is going to now pick up this toe through 3 and 4 on the NASCAR course. But now, as he starts piling on the pressure, pulls up high side to make the move, hoping that no traffic gets involved this time around, and the answer is very firmly there won't be. Over through the tri-oval they go, and Patrick Young gets SimRC.de Strawberry back up to the front of this field, and quite decisively by that merit as well.
Now, it was a bit of a close call, but they did manage to get it done. And now that Patrick Young is up front there, he is just going to absolutely run away with the lead here from what we've been able to see. My question is, when they get that other driver back in the car, or I guess if they get the other driver back in the car, will they be able to maintain that lead? Because you got to remember, for Graphite Racing, they were pulling away in the first stint of this entire race, and now it's going to be SimRC.de Strawberry that's going to be pulling away. So how will that change after pit stop number 2? Because we are approaching the halfway point actually in just a minute here, and we are going to, of course, be seeing that pit stop that could shake everything up for a race win.
We certainly could see that pit stop come into play. The lead, though, for the MX-5 starts to close in as Finian D'Acunha for Bombshell Motorsport Inc. starts to close down GT Temple, and George Vasquez at the front. So on the brakes, left-hander, no chance of making the move just yet, but more traffic comes through. That's Kurt Crum, another Bombshell Motorsport Inc. car, so trying to do it as quickly as possible to get away as Kurt Crum comfortably gets down the inside and away from the MX-5s. But really, this has been that sleeper battle. It's the one where they have stayed very much in line, and I think they're probably waiting for something more to develop this race further.
I'm a little bit concerned about Finian D'Acunha at the time, because when he was making room for Noah Schlepphout in his Porsche, he actually ended up clipping the wall to the pit entry. Didn't spin out, but he does. You can see actually from the cockpit view here, there is some left side damage on the nose and on the quarter panel for that left front wheel. So I am wondering if that's going to be affecting his performance at all. It doesn't seem to be, but he definitely did lose a lot of ground when he hit the wall.
Maybe a little bit of damage, but it doesn't seem like it's been affecting him too much. The draft has been a great equaliser then in terms of that one, as just keeping an eye on things. I'm actually surprised by the pace of Dirk Federman, as there's a half spin in front from Tor Anders Berven for Team Vikings, and well, Team Vikings there just trying to take 2 for 1, maybe being a little bit greedy with Marcel Unger, but just trying to slow it down. Ultimately gets a nice little slide, saves it, but just like that, it was a massive checkup for the MX-5s, who really didn't want to slow down any more than they had to.
Now it was a big checkup as well, but you know what, it did end up playing all right. He did manage to recover it, so thank goodness for that. Look back up front to your fight for the lead. Here we go. Finian D'Acunha looking to the outside. He's definitely not got as much damage as I thought. It actually completely disappeared from my screen, so it might have been a little bit of an echo error on my end. As he is going to get, will he clear though by turn 1? It doesn't look like he will, as Jorg Wasmus still there into turn number 1. Who's going to be more aggressive on the brakes? And D'Acunha backs out of it. He's going to go for, might go for an over and under. No, he's going to have to try again.
Yeah, he just waits on that one. Got alongside, but didn't have anything decisive to make the move. And wasn't confident enough to go too wide. But a great run through the SS section as they head towards the International Horseshoe again, deciding to get on the brakes and unable to go and make that move. Other battle out on circuit. We've got Nibble Racing against the Apex Racing Group Blue. This now for the top 5 here in your Radicals division, as Andy Banfield tries to hold off Ross Bartle out on track, and the difference is substantial. It's a second a lap at the moment for Nibble Racing to be closing down, but really haven't had the chance to go and make the move that they want. They also have just in front of them Troy Goatley of WR Racing B, and by the looks of that gap, he's having off somewhere, and I reckon International Horseshoe.
That certainly wouldn't be the first time we've seen cars go off at the International Horseshoe. It's probably going to be far from the last as well in this race. Ross Bartel is having a little bit of trouble closing into Andy Banfield on the straightaways, but he is closing the second to lap, as he mentioned, so I do believe it's going to be the road course where he shines the most. We're probably going to see that here in just a few minutes with courses like the International Horseshoe. Keep one eye on Troy Goatley. Will he make another mistake and possibly go off again? Nope, not even close. He's going to manage to keep it together. And meanwhile, they've got some Miatas up front they're going to have to worry about as well, who are also fighting for position. And we had a Porsche going to the grass trying to avoid them.
Oh, and that's not ideal at all. We have seen a retirement to the 95 bag Cactus Racing car as well. So Porsche's in avoidance. We're seeing a few vehicles run into troubles as Troy Goatley has another little moment running a little bit wide onto the grass. So Andy Banfield is right there, and just like that, straight down the inside, but power is there on the exit for Troy Goatley, who is struggling right now with this vehicle. Definitely a #2 driver at this stage, running 149 that last time by. Andy Banfield is all over him like a rash, trying to find a way through. Looks up high to try and get that position of fourth away, and ultimately is in position to do so right now on the outside. Can he get it on the brakes? Answer is going to be no. That's some very good late braking there from Goatley, just to hold on for now.
That's the kind of braking you want to see when you're in Radical right there. Nice and late, but not late enough that you risk unsettling your car. Troy Goatley made that look picture perfect for defense right there. And you've just seen something else, Jake.
Yeah, that's PCDC Motorsports Red, who was stopped right in front of the start-finish line, spread, eagle, and sideways. They did it all on their own, which makes me feel like it was a wiggle, snap a brake, and then that looks technical in the sense that that looked like a failure of something. Paddle-wise or pedal-wise, and he's so lucky that no one else has managed to go and collect him. Albin Nystrom has managed to get it going. To me, that's a panic, and you don't often see a panic in these vehicles.
Especially not going into the tri-oval, certainly. Or at least into like the little start-finish line there. So that is interesting to see, but they did manage to keep themselves all sorted out. We look back to your fight for the MX-5s. It might have also been a force feedback issue as well with this wheel. Hopefully they've got that. They're going to get that problem all sorted out as we look back up to your fight for the lead for the MX-5 field.
Yeah, and it stays with GT Temple up in front, but Bombshell Motorsport Inc. are behind, and they are close. They have just been sitting pretty, and about 20 seconds back down the road is Daniel Jerez of World of Sim Racing Team, the Spanish-based team, in third position right now. They're having a pretty solid run of things at the moment here in this event. It has been a cautious event by the MX-5s, and we're going to see this again. Finian D'Acunha trying to make that push towards the front of the field as they go through the tri-oval. Nothing forthcoming right now on the brakes into the left-hander, and no changes of position once again for the two MX-5s. But back to the battle for about fourth position right now, because Troy Goatley is starting to find a bit of pace, starting to slowly break away over the course of this one, and is now starting to gap the apex once again as he turns around, and ultimately everyone will now find their way through. Was finding the gap, but there's the mistake, and WR Racing B are now back in sixth.
One car I do want to look at that on board from was, of course, Andy Banfield, because he just had what some people might consider a brown trousers moment, because good gravy, that was so close, and that could have ended this day so incredibly quickly. Banfield managing to pick up that spot, but that was way too close for comfort, no doubt.
Oh, I have to agree with you on that one, as that battle suddenly comes to an abrupt end. One that won't, though, is the 116 versus the 198. This is SimSport News Racing with Eric Boudoir against Marcel Mercer in the Real Pixel Motorsports 3 machine. So right now, SimSport looking to try and pull in a gap, but ultimately they have just released that brake a little early, lifted and coasted, and tried to get the run off the exit. So definitely contrasting lines through that section. And they do have Bjorn de Vos, who is a lap down on them, just in front. She's maybe causing a little bit of a wake here for Marcel Mercer, which is helping out the 198 in the long term. So really no chances here for SimSport News to get through at this stage of the lap.
I'm going to keep an eye on that fight for fourth now, in your Radical field, as actually Andy Banfield drives Ross Bartel all the way down over the apron, and somehow Bartel managed to stick his nose in there, and he's going to go for that position now, going into turn number 1, deep on the brakes. Banfield backs out of it, and that is going to be 4th place for Ross Bartel.
It is Nibble Racing now, who started 7th. Can now say they are up 3 positions in this event as Enigma ClubSport Porsche finds itself in the infield, rounding the right-hander. This is just ahead of Real Pixel and SimSport. Just a big spin trying to put the power down on the exit. Rear-wheel drive vehicles as well, which means that power goes through the rears, and the rears do like to spin up. And ultimately, that Porsche has a little bit of a trip down the grass, and that wasn't ideal for Javier Rivera, but those are the losses. That's a couple of positions that go a-begging very, very quickly, and almost a third as Alexander Wax now tries to prove he has pace.
Alexander Wack might have his work cut out for him here. He is going to be trying to put as much time on as he can. It could be interesting, though, just to see how decisive these drivers will be getting, especially since we're getting into like the later portions of the race now. So this could get interesting here to see what kind of strategies these guys are going to be thinking of, especially for pit stops.
And that pit stop bell is dinging because they are very close to that margin, around 1 hour 30, 1 hour 35 is what they'll be hoping for to get to end of the event, as it is a 2 hour 25-minute push around this track. So here comes Wax, hoping to try and get to the outside potentially to make this move. There isn't really much of a way you would abandon that inside, but the inside has been abandoned by a certain Javier Rivera. Down to the inside goes Alexander Wax, trying to make the move, and on the brakes, left-hand corner, and that is as comfortable as you like. Alexander Wax gets up another position here in this event, and that is probably a textbook overtake.
Oh, absolutely. You go and you stick your nose in there, and then you need to be really decisive on the brakes, and that's exactly what he was. Braked at the opportune moment, and Javier Rivera had to move wide to avoid running into him. So that was, of course, textbook. He is going to be held up here a little bit, though, by Nicholas Pacheco in his Miata, and actually almost lost it through that left-hand kink. Had a bit of a wiggle on the back end. Of course, that is one of the most difficult turns on the track, is that left-hand kink, because it is, again, one of those single groove corners where if you're not on the groove, you're going to find yourself either spinning off to the left side of the track as of oversteer, or you're going to find yourself spearing off on the right side from understeer.
That's very, very true. Got a nice little MX-5 battle as well, as Ole Christian Unenberg for Team Viking Sleipner looks to battle the Sable Motorsport and the vehicle of Marco Spiller on track, nose to tail through 3 and 4, as here comes Carter Kundinger in the SK Motorsports car to breeze on by, and all of a sudden Ole needs to find himself the move that he wants, and he's not quite there to pull alongside and make it happen. He's looking all over, he's looking left, looking right, trying to get wide in the mirrors to make a nuisance of himself, but ultimately nothing doing there in towards turn numbers 1 and 2, and Marco Spiller holds on once more.
Marco Spiller, despite the distraction from Ole Christensen Unenberg harassing his mirrors, he does keep himself nice and composed. And that's what you want to do. We still have a lot of time left, got just over an hour left in this race. So he's just giving it nice and calm. He's like, all right, yeah, you can do what you want. You're not going to get to me. You can't distract me. He's keeping his focus in, and that's what's allowed him to pull away just a little bit in turn number 1, and he is actually gaining quite a bit of time through this road course section, which is almost surprising, but at the same time not really when you consider how focused he seems to look.
Yeah, and he certainly does look focused, and I tell you what, there are other battles in Porsche or on the field that look close, especially in Porsche right now, because you've got Real Pixel Motorsport 2 and Jacob Lehman, and behind you've got two huge ass cars of Alex Albert and Alex Cafard. So the two Alexes trying to push forward for huge ass here, and at the moment, not quite there for HJ Motorsports. They're trying to get themselves into that position to start making moves, but of course with Blue's penalties and Gold's issues at the start of the event, they really haven't made as much progress as maybe thought of.
It is unfortunate they had to get these penalties so early on in the race, but the fact that we do have these two Porsches that are closing the gap, it is interesting to see what they'll be kind of trying to put together here.
You're absolutely right, and what they're trying to get together is a good solid result to start the season. They are outside the top 10 in the Porsche standings at the moment, still being led of course by NAB Racing and Frank van Brandwijk, who has pulled away from Kurt Krupp, and Bombshell Motorsports Inc. in second position by about a tenth of a lap at this stage right now, so that's something to keep in mind. But we're looking at, well, what could SimRC.de Strawberry do in this race now that they've taken the lead? The answer is build a sizable 18-second gap at the front of the field, which only seemingly looks like it's getting larger and larger and larger.
Well, the gap is definitely increasing, and they could come back to one of those things. Look at the gap there, 19.5 seconds. At the start of the pit stop, he was, what, 7 seconds behind him? He's definitely putting on the pace, and when they get the original driver switched back into the cars, can Graphite Racing manage to fight their way back up to SimRC.de Strawberry? We have seen Graphite Racing, they dominated that entirety of the first stint. I wonder if they can do so here again.
Well, I wonder if they can, but ultimately they have absolutely nothing on Patrick Young at the moment, and that is very pronounced and very profound, as well as there is a mechanical black flag that has gone out for the number 18, that's WR Racing B and Troy Goatley. So clearly there is too much damage according to the stewards, and looking at that rear wing, that definitely seems to be the case. A pit stop is in order. Oh my goodness gracious me, getting very close to your race leaders, and that will basically be that with a black flag there. That will be their day done so right now. But Patrick Young, but he finds his way through on Troy Goatley and will continue on his way to dominating the field right now, as actually Ole Christian Unenberg in the MX-5 just in front of him have actually managed to take swap position, and gain exactly what that they want to, as we have seen a spin here, Nolan, for Gold Racing Team White.
Yes, it was a spin down in the West Horseshoe. This happened actually almost a lap ago now. No damage. It looked to me like they just lost it under braking and just spun it through what would normally be a portion of the moto circuit here. They did manage to get themselves back collected, and it looks like we're going to be getting a replay up on your screens here. So this is coming through the International Horseshoe now with Jeffrey Gorzato out through the exit here. I wonder if he actually maybe overcorrected in the kink as well. We'll find out here in just a moment. Through the left-hand kink he goes. No overcorrecting so far. Onto the brakes, just lost it under braking.
Oh, very easy. And when you're on that tarmac and you're starting to lose it, and it's a lot more narrow, you've got to be worried about coming back onto circuit and keeping your eyes on a swivel, and that was exactly what we saw at the moment. We're going to drag in a certain friend of ours here at RaceSpotTV, David Haynes, joining us from HJ Motorsport. David, the blue car seems to be going well, and you went good for about 3 corners before collecting a penalty.
Yeah, if I'm honest, I don't know what happened there, and I've not had a chance to see the replay yet, but I'm going to trust the stewards. Unfortunate, and man, that's the longest 60 seconds of my life, sitting in that penalty box, sitting in the pit stop. But we're back out here, and I think we've got a chance for a top 10 still.
Well, the chance for the top 10s there. You've got your gold comrades in Alex Coffard behind by a couple of seconds, looking to chase. Oh, you've just got past Real Pixel over the course of this lap. Next up then on your hit list is the Enigma ClubSport Porsche. Are you a little bit surprised at the moment by just how much gapping there has been over the course of this event throughout the various classes and a lot of what has been going on?
Well, for starters, the Radical, I assume, is a very difficult car to drive, especially in multi-class, so them fragmenting, not a huge surprise. And then in the Porsches, there's some pro teams and some AM teams, so I guess that's... Oh, I'm just watching the Radical pass our car. Yeah, that sort of makes sense.
Well, it certainly does, but hoping for that top 10 and now just trying to gain position after position after position. Before we let you go, any shout-outs to sponsors you'd like to get off your chest?
Yeah, of course. Thanks to all my team members here helping me with this series. Looking forward to it. Thank you to our major sponsor, Dick Insider. And if you have a good look at our car, we're sporting some new RaceSpot stickers. So hoping those bring us some better luck in the next round and a little bit of extra horsepower in this one.
Well, luck does one thing, but you certainly have gained 0.2 of a second by having a RaceSpot sticker on your vehicle. So thank you for joining us. David Haynes there from HJ Motorsport. The right sticker is apparently bigger than the left one. I don't know what that could possibly mean, Nolan, but ultimately it means that they need to try a little bit harder, I think, over the course of this event, and the next vehicle is just a few seconds down the road to try and pick up.
Well, you heard it here first. You get a RaceSpot sticker on your car, you instantly get an extra few horsepower worth of speed. So that's a nice little Easter egg tip for all of you guys out there. Not really. And of course, those huge-ass cars do have a little bit of work ahead of them, but of course, they will be able to find their way up to the front. I do believe this could, of course, change as the course of the race goes on.
It certainly could. The 168 and the 116 continue their battle. This is Porsche Basel by Sorg Rennsport against SimSport News, and SimSport News seemingly have lost the position over the course of the last couple of laps. Eric Bordois is 0.3 of a second slower over the course of that one compared to the Sorg car of Alexander Wax, who has had his own little spin and a penalty to serve as well, has managed to keep going in, just looking at it, about 8th position in category at the moment. Next up for Porsche Basel will be the Real Pixel Motorsport 3 car, which is about 10 seconds down the road. And ultimately, I believe here, Nolan, we find ourselves in a situation where Marcel Mercer is in a place where he just needs to get some calm laps in. 1.2 seconds a lap slower, but 2 cars behind are clearly quicker.
If he can get some clean laps in, after, of course, clearing these Miatas ahead of him, he'll definitely be able to... I think he can get that pace that he needs, but of course the lap traffic can have some problems with it, because one of the things that was really iterated in the driver's briefing was that the lap cars don't necessarily have to get out of your way, and it is up to the faster cars to make that clean pass as common racing etiquette. So Marcel Mercer is of course having troubles getting past some of these lap cars like the Miatas. He can get himself back into things, though. He is actually, it looks like he's closing in to Stefan Meinke with German Sim Racing, #blue DGFX directly in front of him. That would, of course, be for 13th place overall, so we could actually see another fight strengthening it up soon, not long after this.
No, we certainly can't. We have seen a change, though, for second position, because Demis Tigelaar has made his S-Rock Racing orange car go through on Graphite Racing and Tom Van Put, who has been struggling over the last couple of laps. So S-Rock now moved themselves up 1:45.4 that last time by, still nowhere near the 43.9 of Patrick Young, who is absolutely showing a masterclass of driving when it comes to his Radical SR8. But a change for second position. Graphite are going one direction, and that is backwards, but they do have a good 35 seconds back to Nibble Racing, so they've got not much to be worried about from here.
I am wondering, because I think we still have one pit window left, I do wonder if they could ever hope to make that time up again, because you got to remember, they do have the ability. They showed that they have the ability in the first stint when they got a 7-second lead on the rest of the Radicals in their class, but they've dropped back so far in this stint. Do you think they have what they need to have in order to make up the rest of these positions? As of course we see our race leader struggling to lap around Kurt Crumb with Bombshell Motorsports.
Well, looking at the lap times that have been done, it's clear that there are some good times, and that Patrick Young, what he's doing is just making himself probably about as good as the others as the track does rubber in and gets a little bit more coarse and a bit more sticky and more difficult to deal with. Patrick Young's pace has been similar to that of his teammate Rudolf Nagel. The thing is, Graphite have a slow second driver. They need to put that driver in as quickly as possible. And I'd probably say hit as early as possible on the strategy to make that happen. And even then, I'm not sure there's going to be any guarantees that the time's going to be coming back at all when it comes to this event. So this is a little bit worrying, I think, for anybody else here in this one, especially S-Rock Orange, who find themselves in second and Graphite now in third. I doubt we'll see anybody now catch SimRC Strawberry.
Absolutely not, because they've put on almost a 30-second lead even from S-Rock Racing Orange. They've got, like, we're actually going to see here just a second at the line, what will the gap be from first to second place? 28.9, so just about 30 seconds worth of time. So even if he did a drive-through, even if SimRC.de Strawberry did a drive-through penalty, they would still be in first.
We've seen an issue for Nibble Racing, and that was Ross Bartle, the fourth place vehicle. It was with Carter Kundinger, and Kundinger just gets a tap on the rear, under braking, and just like that, slammed into the wall is Ross Bartle, and that is another spin to go with that too in the infield of the bus stop chicane. And I think Ross Bartle will be due on pit road soon, if not now.
I would expect Ross Bartel to be coming to pit road, as he actually has to check up a little bit before the Miata that I think moved to the inside to let some faster cars through, and Ross Bartel checked up for him, thinking he might have been going to pit road with him. Bartel down onto pit road now, just as he predicted, most likely to get that damage fixed. That is definitely the one thing we don't want to see, and it's again the speed difference and the braking point differences that we can see between the two different cars, and it's just an unfortunate wrong place, wrong time scenario.
No fault of his own, obviously. Hit the brakes at the right point. His opponent just got a little tap on the rear, and just like that, the racing changes. So they'll look to continue forward. Stefan Meinke, though, in the German sim racing blue car, has been caught by Marcel Mercer in the Real Pixel Motorsport 3, as these two teams will now start scrapping it out through the West Horseshoe. And Marcel Mercer is pretty much on course to make this overtake if he's not too cautious and pedestrian about this next situation, as we are starting to head towards the next pit stop window, the final pit stop window. We are 50 minutes away from the end of this event. So now for Marcel Mercer, it's about pushing and trying to get into that draft range to make that move. A good bus stop will allow it.
Good bus stop will indeed allow it, and we do see the sun is beginning to get lower and lower in the sky as we approach the late afternoon. Do you think maybe track temperatures perhaps could change any of what we're seeing here at all? The track temperature is currently standing at 70 degrees Fahrenheit, so actually relatively cool for a Florida racetrack.
It's cool, it's winter time as well, which means it's naturally going to be cool as up the track comes Marcel Mercer, trying to get around the outside. It is saving the tyres a little bit more, but on cue, down onto the lane goes Stefan Meinke to make his final stop then of the day. In comes Carter Kundinger and also Andy Banfield for the Apex Racing Group Blue. So we are starting to see the final pits. German Disaster Racing and Jens Lehmann, hopefully not the German goalkeeper from Arsenal, comes out and looks to try and push on forward with German Disaster Racing. So pit stop window's open. I think drivers are now starting to think it's time to come down in, get the final stop done, and get back out on track.
It's one thing I would think of doing is we got to lock up in turn number 1. Patrick Young for SimRC.de Strawberry. Yes, your race leader just locked up going into turn 1. Not enough, of course, to actually have any real effect on the gaps at all, but it is showing that he is beginning to wear himself down a little bit. I actually got a really huge wiggle and ran wide trying to recover it, so very impressive save by Patrick Young. As a matter of fact, we're going to run on board. Look at how quickly he has got to correct his wheel here. Look at this. Just, whoa, wow, that is unbelievable. And that just proves how good of a driver Patrick Young is.
What's more unbelievable is that on exactly the same lap, exactly the same corner, Demis Tigelaar in second position has spun the car at the same corner. So S-Rock Orange just go around and it's exactly the same. Little wiggle, trying to deal with the adjusted track temperatures as part of the new iRacing build. And just like that, S-Rock succumbs to a little spin at turn 1. Readjust your braking points now, because everything is starting to change in these vehicles. And oh, straight up down the inside with contact as well on WR Racing. So Demis Tigelaar, 2 little incidents in the space of half a lap.
That unfortunately was not the fault of Demis Tigelaar though, because if you look, you could see going into the corner that Tigelaar was indeed there, and WR Racing did run really wide and then just cut right in and doored him. S-Rock Racing Orange though, they were right on the apron, not the apron, excuse me, they were right on the curb of the West Horseshoe. There really wasn't a whole lot they could do in that scenario.
Now, I have to agree with you there on that one. There wasn't really much at all that could be done to hold off, as out of pit road comes George Gruber in the Talk Freak Racing Avon Rise car, which at one stage was up in 4th position as a warning comes in for the 128 machine. That 128 belonging to PCDC Motorsports Blue and Bjorn de Forge. That was for ignoring blue flags, so they've just got to be careful about that, as Enigma ClubSport Porsche have decided to come down in as Slow Racing also get themselves off of pit road. Sasso Prosen behind the wheel of that vehicle as they continue forward. Porsches should come in first, MX-5s are due to follow, and then you will see the Radicals starting to think about finding a pit road very soon. DT Temple, though, have managed to get a gap on World of Sim Racing, because that's Bombshell, who have dropped back over the course of a few laps or so, a few poor laps actually, has to be said. Daniel Jerez has put in some wonderful consistency, 2 11s and 2 10s only over the course of the last 20 laps or so.
He has been extremely consistent, and that could be one of the key things that could end up determining whether they can make up a position or not. I wonder when Patrick Young is going to come in, because we are seeing the tires starting to fall away gradually as we're... Yes, there it is. Patrick Young, I do wonder when he's going to have to come in for the pits, though, because after that little save he had in turn 1, he is going to have to consider coming down for tires after that, because they are starting to wear down, and the track will be cooling as the sun slowly begins to set. He's going to stay out one more time, though, and at this point in time, I almost wonder if he's beginning to almost overstretch the boundaries of how much the tires on that Radical can take.
Well, they went 30 laps on the opening stint, so they're probably about 3 laps off the window that they hope to achieve in this event, as out of pit road comes WR Racing into further positions in this event, and it has been a long stay for a number of vehicles. Race leaders in Porsche are in, though. Frank van Brandwijk behind the wheel, as we've got only 3 vehicles currently on the lead lap. That's mainly due to pit stops that have been going on at the moment, but Frank van Brandwijk is down on pit road for NAB Racing.
He is down on the pit lane, so we're beginning to see all of the drivers slowly making their way down into pit lane, as that is, of course, your leader for the Porsche, who is actually exiting pit lane now. This pit exit in its own is actually very tricky as well. We have talked a lot about how the track can be tricky as well, but when you think about it, the pit exit in its own is just as, if not even more tricky. It is very tempting to jump over those yellow little speed bumps you can see on the bottom there. Don't do that, though. You're probably going to give your car suspension damage, especially if you're in a Radical.
Stop and hold of 60 seconds then for German Disaster Racing. That's for an unsafe rejoin for them. So the 142 machine finds themselves in penalty fields. In comes Team Viking Siphoner, Ole Christian Uneberg. Marco Spiller also in for Disabled Motorsports. A big difference on where they pit. Andrew Mickey gets behind the Bombshell Motorsports in Miata, as well as Simon Essers back behind the wheel, and actually gained quite a bit in terms of that stop. It was slower for Bombshell. So now GT Temple have got to find a way of getting out forward, because World of Sim Racing and Daniel Arret, well, they won't be waiting for anyone. They're just going to run the consistency gamble and keep on putting those lap times in that they are capable of doing.
And consistency will be key here, especially late in this race, because the sun is beginning to slowly descend on this race. So how long do you think these drivers, I guess, could possibly have until, you know, maybe we start to see a couple drivers crack from just the fatigue? Because we have been racing for, it's going to be closing in on, I can't try to do the math in my head. I think we've been at it for about a good hour and 46 minutes, coming up on that in just a moment here. So these drivers could be starting to get a bit tired, especially the ones currently in the car at the time. But you do remember, a lot of these teams, they're actually going to switch back to the original drivers, so that could also have a bit of a change in how we could see strategy playing out towards the end of this race.
It certainly could, as your race leader currently holds 38 seconds of advantage here in this event over Demis Tigchalar in second position for S-Rock Racing Orange. Sim RC have been dominant over the last 50 minutes or so, and we'll be looking to showcase that once again in the next couple of laps when they come down in and make their final stop of the evening. Lab Racing, though, they have found themselves out of pit road, but it's now Bombshell Inc. who try and chase them down, but ultimately nothing quite working at the moment to try and make that happen. Frank van Brandwijk clearly ahead and clearly having a very good run at the moment. And then you look at your third category, World of Sim Racing, due on the lane and are on the lane to make their final stop of the day.
Final stops are slowly beginning to roll in, and they're beginning to slowly drop down as well, as we're going to be seeing World of Sim Racing now exiting pit road as well. And that will do it for your class leaders at the time for their pit stops. So this could mean that it's going to be an all-out battle to the finish at this point. There is no more pit strategy. Unless you made yourself tight on fuel to make a car a little bit faster, you shouldn't really have to worry about fuel mileage, I would assume, at least not at the early portions of the race. So I would say now it's time to go for it. If you can go for a position, push hard and push now, because if you wait till like 5 minutes left of the race, you're probably not going to be able to get it done.
That's very, very true, and I worry now in terms of the race lead for GT Temple. Got Simon Essers back behind the wheel, but Daniel Arret feels comfortable and feels confident at the moment to close this gap down in the final 40 minutes of this event, and we will see they are going to be able to make that happen. Lap 60 here at Daytona Beach, Florida, at Daytona International Speedway, and this race seemingly looks like it's about to just hit that moment where everyone's got to decide, okay, what's my final battle? Where do I adjust my aims and my final positions to feel like I can be comfortable and happy with where I am in this event? On cue, race leader dives down onto pit road, simrc.de Strawberry.
And finally, Patrick Young pulling down on the pit lane. He's finally had it in. Will they change their drivers one more time, or will they keep Patrick Young in the car? I'd almost recommend keeping Young in the car, because he has been put on an extraordinary pace throughout the course of this event. Will they keep him in the car as they lift the front of the car up to get those tires on? And we're going to find out in a second here if he's actually going to be staying in the car or if they're going to be switching it out. It looks like he's going to be staying in that car. So Patrick Young quite possibly looking to stay in the car. We're going to find out in a second here if he stays in that car. Yes, that's going to be it. Loading some more fuel in, and that could be it. And I do believe that if they keep that strategy, if that works out well for them, simrc.de Strawberry will have this race in the bag.
Well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's effectively what SimRC are doing, as S-Rock Racing Orange dive down onto pit road just behind, and That's very, very telling right now. SimRC had a pit stop advantage as they got off and away and back going once more. And now only traffic really has the ability of stopping SimRC from collecting a big race victory out on track. Here's a scrap though for third position right now. It's Huge Ass Blue with Alex Albert against the Talk Freak Racing Avon Rise car of George Gruber. Gruber currently on the inside, yields the position heading to the bus stop, and just like that, Alex Albert comfortably makes his way through the left, right, and then left again chicane, and that is as easy as you like there from Alex Albert, and he will be happy about making that move up to the podium as things stands.
Absolutely, and that is, of course, what you want to see. So George Gruber being bumped down to 4th place in class now. He is still, that actually puts him out of the top 10 overall as well, because they're also scrapping not only for a podium in the Porsche class, but they're also scrapping for the top 10 in their overall positions. Can he get the move back in turn 1? He's going to have to hang on, though. He might have to wait. We're going to see here in a moment, though, who's going to be better in the road course. And I wonder if Alex Albert might overshoot his point for the International Horseshoe and might get a little too cocky and go wide.
Well, he's got a bit of traffic trying to go through, and that's Eric Smith in the VAPEX Racing Group purple machine, and through he goes to continue on the racing action. So there's some good battling that has been going on, some very strong battling as well, but they will continue on their little push. But in terms of your MX-5 battle right now, Simon Essers holds the lead, but Daniel Jerez is not too far behind at all. That gap looking around 3-ish seconds out on track. Last lap by was a 2:11.0 from Simon Essers. From Daniel Jerez was a 2:12.0. So definitely not quick enough right now for Daniel Jerez, as it seems that Simon Essers is doing enough to keep that World of Sim Racing Spanish team away from number 1.
Key word is yet, because remember, Simon Essers may be one of those drivers that's really good at the start of the stint, but pace could probably drop off towards the end of the stint. We're going to find out if Daniel Jerez Juan can work his way up and manage to take back first place further towards the end of the stint. It looked like it might be one of those situations, because remember, either early on in the stint or late at the last stint, we saw him closing in a fair bit. So this could be interesting coming into the last 20 minutes or so of this race.
It certainly could do, but we are a little ways away from that at the moment, about half an hour plus away from the end of this event, and now it becomes a game of waiting for a lot of drivers up and down the field. Have they got exactly what they want, or are they going to have to push for a little bit more? A team that doesn't have to push with a 45-second gap is SimRC.de Strawberry. Let's go on board with your race leaders with RaceSpotTV Fan Immersion. penalties come in. It's a disqualification for German disaster racing, and it is a disaster because a breach of the infraction points limit means that they find themselves out of a drive for the remaining 35 minutes of, or sorry, the remaining 30 minutes of this event coming up, which is a shame to see, but out of the event will go German disaster racing. This is, of course, the ClubSport Series, brought to you by RaceSpotTV, and the racing action that we have seen go on has just opened itself up slightly. We've got leading categories for 3 of them. SimRC.D Strawberry, 45 seconds down the road. NAB Racing have been absolutely sensational, and they lead Bombshell Motorsports Inc. by a fair margin as well. And then the closest battle of the lot is your MX-5 field with World of Sim Racing and GT Temple trading seconds left and right at the moment. So this is going to be an interesting race, as the 281 machine has just found itself without too many friends on track, and that is them out of the event after having a big shunt. We've managed to catch this one on replay here. Gianni Quintelier was behind the wheel into the International Horseshoe. Turn number 3, down the inside goes 1, and the second comes along on the exit, and bang, there's the German sim racing car into the side, running wide off the exit there, Nolan, and just like that, goes around, and they have no more in terms of this event.
That's probably also unfortunate, the incident that put that 142 car above the infraction points limit, so that is no doubt going to be the incident that led to the disqualification. So very unfortunate for both teams, because of course that 281 machine, they're going to be, I do believe they are probably going to be done, or they're just going to be out of the fight for serious positions like a podium or something. And the 142 car, they're out of the race entirely, so it is extremely unfortunate for both teams here.
It is, but those are the points of racing. But now look at the battle for your MX-5 lead. Simon Essers has been caught by Daniel Harek quite dramatically, another second locked off that last time by. Now World of Sim Racing team, for the first time today, after about an hour and 35, or an hour, almost 2 hours worth of racing now at this point, they now have the chance to take the race lead away from GT Temple, who have held onto it for the majority of this event. And for the moment at least, World of Sim Racing just going to play that waiting game as they hit the oval.
Now he's not going to have to play the waiting game for long, because he is right there and waiting in the wings to make a move. He is a little faster by just a few kilometers of an hour, so he could make the move here, potentially going into the bus stop chicane if he can get it done right. Here he is on the right side. It's going to be a drag race down to that braking zone. Who is going to win out here in the end, though? Daniel suffering a little bit from network issues, but he's going to hold on. They're going to be side by side going into the chicane. He's forced to back out of it, though.
He is forced to back out of it there, as there was traffic behind of Sasso Prosen for the slow racing team. So that's just going to be kept in the mind. Any traffic that goes through, like the Apex Racing Group Red going through. Richard McClure is behind the wheel of that one. And then Benjamin Fisher of Fisher Motorsports, as we hear new.
Nicholas Pacheco, speaking of which, he has just pulled off the circuit for a reason. He actually was stopped at turn number 1, interestingly enough, and then he drove the car very slowly through the S's, and now he's just stopped there close to the International Horseshoe. So possible network or mechanical issues.
It looks like it's technical nature for Nicholas Pacheco in the World of Sim Racing Team Junior machine. So that's going to be a little bit hurtful. That may even be a cause for a virtual safety car if they're not careful. And there was Simon Essers having to defend very hard as traffic goes through in the form of the PCDC Motorsports yellow Radical, as now Daniel Harek starts thinking, starts wondering, when is the right time to strike? When can I strike at the right place? Nearly had it at the International Horseshoe. Maybe a chance for the West Horseshoe, which doesn't provide itself as a traditional overtaking opportunity, with the very difficult nature of turning into the apex of that corner. But once more, trying to look for that position, holding up the traffic behind, as they are allowed to have their own little scrap. But really, Daniel Jerez just on the wings of trying to make that move. Just needs one decisive little shot to get that one done.
Yeah, he's just going to need one little shot here. I wonder if he'll try to make another move into the bus stop chicane. If I was Daniel, though, at this time, I wouldn't so much go for it going into the bus stop chicane because it didn't work out the last time. He did have to back out of it. I tried going to the turn number 1, but he is going to try to go for it again. He does have the advantage on that outside line. Can he manage to get just enough, though, to force him to back out? Nope, he's going to have to fall right back in behind. Exactly what we saw in the first lap. Not the first lap, excuse me, on the last lap. And he's going to have to try again at turn number 1.
He is going to have to try again, but he is still tucked in that toe, and I wonder if he's just waiting for that point to strike as he once again closes that gap down once more, looks up high side and has to get a little bit closer then to benefit from the side draft. That's what he's got to try and use now to push forward, try and use all the air possible to make that move, and has got himself just ahead. He now open up the door for the two vehicles to go through that of radical nature. One was WR Racing B, the other S-Rock Racing Orange, and still it's a hole for Simon Essers and GT Temple, who seem much more confident when it comes to the brakes.
Well, not only that, but when they had to open the door to let the Radicals through, that World of Sim Racing Miata, they had to run a bit wider than would obviously be optimal for turn 1, so they were kind of off the original line they were aiming for, so that is unfortunate. But look at how close they're getting. They're almost banging bumpers as they go through the International Horseshoe, as the Porsches manage to thread their way by through this incredibly narrow section of the racetrack. It's going to be tricky here because you do see the World of Sim Racing team car backing off, but that is, of course, to let all of this faster traffic through. That could play into his advantage, though, if he has to get in the way. But no, that GT Temple Racing MX-5 machine, of course, lets him through on the exit of the West Horseshoe, and that means that Daniel Jerez Juan has got quite a bit of work ahead of him to make up for.
He's got work ahead of him, but he can certainly close that gap down as long as he's got the time to make sure that the gap is closing. We have seen some very good battles up and down the field. We are still waiting on a couple of final stops here and there, potentially towards the end of this event, because a lot of the Porsche field, and why it has jumbled up quite a bit, is teams like Hujas are off strategy with Alex Albert behind the wheel due to a pit stop soon, if not at all, in the latter stages of this event. But we have seen how this event has been a big killer in terms of vehicle numbers right now. We have seen at least 4 retirements so far today, but we have seen a lot of mistakes, not race-ending mistakes, but a lot of mistakes nevertheless. German Sim Racing Blue and Michael Bittman are under a bit of pressure because Real Pixel are just a few seconds back down the road. Tim Christian Sevening is trying to get back into play.
He's going to try, but the question is, can he manage to get the jump? It's one of those incidents where you just can't be sure yet, because the pit strategies are, more often than not, they're going to be almost out the window at this stage of the race. So you really do have to kind of, you have to watch these sorts of things carefully. We do have less than 25 minutes left in the race, so we have been racing for, at this time, 2 hours and 2 minutes. So 23 minutes left. I wonder if we'll be seeing any big position changes later on, not in the later portions of the race. We are in the later portions of the race, but more in the closing moments of this race.
Well, of course, we have got that battle for the Mazda Race Lead, which continues. GT Temple holding on right now, as now Bombshell Motorsports Inc.'s 186 encroaches second position at the moment in category, with Darwin Mites behind the wheel and making his way through on both of the MX-5. So Daniel Jerez back to where he needs to be to make the move, but again, just sitting there waiting and showcasing what he's about. Graphite Racing, though, are trying to put VAPEX Racing Purple Group a lap down and ultimately decide to back out of it, because Eric Smith is quicker, so that's technically an unlapping by VAPEX Purple as they try and get back to VAPEX Blue, and Jeff Yeager, who is a full half a lap, if not 2/3 down the road at this stage, but at 4 seconds a lap quicker. I think VAPEX Racing Group Blue are looking backwards rather than forwards.
Yeah, that's something that can be noticeable as well. You know, when you got these teams looking backwards as rather than forwards. We do have a three-way battle for 16th place overall in your Porsche field, though, Jake.
Yes, we certainly do. As Huge Ass Gold trying to have a good scrap. There's contact between the two. They hold it together. That was Real Pixel Motorsports 3 and Marcel Mercer getting down the inside just like that. They keep it just together, and waiting behind is David Rofer of the SimSport News Racing powered by iZone Green Machine. And that contact there hurt in the long run for Huge Ass. And all that was really was just the two of them running incredibly close together. Not enough turn in there potentially from Marcel Mercer. Too much turn-in, too much room not being given by Alex Caffard, and there is contact.
Well, the gloves are coming off now, boys, as they start to wind their way through the final 20 minutes of this race. If Alex Caffard can work his way back up to Marcel Mercer, it could get interesting in a bit more of the contact sense of the word. David Roth, of course, waited in the wings. He's trying to look for a way to rejoin this battle. No doubt he backed off after seeing the contact and the near spin that Alex Caffard took. He is going to be looking for a spot here. He's got the draft, so he could potentially get back and jump on Marcel Mercer going into turn number 1. They are going to be side by side, but of course Alex Caffard does have the upper hand with the momentum from that draft. Can he be aggressive enough on the race to make it work down into turn number 1 though?
We'll see, as on the brakes they will go. Caffard on the outside trying to get this one sorted, and no, not quite able to make that work, so they stay in position. What has changed though is your MX-5 lead. World of Sim Racing find themselves ahead but not away, because back down to the inside comes Simon Esches, and back to the race lead goes GT Temple. So they're switching up positions now. They're starting to play that tactical game of chess. They're trying to find where's the weaknesses, where's the strengths, and how do I defend, and what position do I want to be in. They're learning about themselves as drivers, and that is going to lead to a very exciting finish.
It certainly will. Like, step number 1 when you're trying to fight somebody from position, know who they are and know their personality. Because if you don't know what they drive like when they're in a race car in this type of scenario, you've already won half the battle. You just need to figure out how to combat that, as there it is, your lead change for your Mazda field, and that will allow World of Sim Racing and Daniel Jerez Juan up into first place. But of course, we got Simon Escher still trying to fight back on the exit of turn number 1. Gets a really wide exit, but they're still side by side. Little bit of contact, just barely going through the bumper, and Escher goes clean off coming into the International Horseshoe.
And that was not what Simon Esches was hoping to see. They're just straight across, trying to leave a door open for the track in front. I don't think there was any contact, maybe a slowdown of sorts for Simon Esches, but Esches still in 1 second's gap of Daniel Jerez. Can close the gap back down, and that is telling for the later parts of this battle, as these two continue to scrap it out then in this field, as they look to try and push on just that little bit more. And what has been telling actually about this battle is the fact that they have been patient about when to make those moves. You see how Etters does let the traffic go, does lose a little bit more time, but is very happy just to move on the track, very similar to the vehicle in front, almost serpentine his way to get back into position, and is just playing that game just to wait as the 299 and the 86 machines now start to have their own little scrap. And that is Real Pixel Motorsports number 1 and Wolfgang Wildenauer, as he's having to deal with his own bit of MX-5 battling, because there's Andrew Mickey trying to get through in the battle for the podium.
Yikes, this is where it gets extremely tight, and we just saw one of those Mazdas. I couldn't quite pick up who it was, but he actually almost doored Alex Caffard in the Huge Ass Gold car, who had to almost bail out of the exit to get there in time. Luckily, it didn't cost him too much, but this is one of those battles where we could be seeing things start to be picking up here just a little bit. They, of course, did get separated a lot trying to let that traffic through, but with the draft that you could get with these cars on the NASCAR portions of this track, no doubt they'll be able to close back in and have themselves a good scrap yet.
No doubt indeed, but For Andrew Mickey and Bombshell Motorsports Inc., it's now about a push further forward. Wolfgang Wildenau is trying to hold everything of Real Pixels here today into accountability and get something good out of this performance. And they have been showing that they have been there or thereabouts with some of their vehicles. Not amazing, but this podium would be a real confidence booster for them moving forward out of this one. Under 20 minutes to go here at Daytona Beach as the sun begins to firmly set, and the lights will soon start coming on as the 122 and the 199 continue to have their scrap as Real Pixel Motorsports 2 and Kim Christian Sevening tries to stay with Michael Bittman in the German sim racing blue car. In front of them is the Team Vikings Valhalla car of Tor Anders Berven, and then Alex Albert, who is now heading onto the lane for the final time in his event, going to drop down onto the lane this battle. Bittman under pressure, gives the inside to Kim Christian Sevening and says, that position's yours, go take it. That was a gift of a position and maybe even a late Christmas present.
Yeah, quite possibly. On the other hand, though, you got to remember, Michael Bittman, there's still 15 minutes left in this race, so he might have a little strategy trying to be pulled up his sleeve here. So if he does want that position, I do hope that he can find a way to get it back, because that would make for a really good fight. But he definitely did give it to him. Like, he moved right out of the way in the braking zone for turn number 1. And it wasn't even running wide. He literally turned right out of the way. So interesting to see Michael Bittman doing that, but I'm pretty sure that Kim Christian Sevening, he's not going to be complaining whatsoever.
No, I don't think he will be at all. I think he deliberately got down the inside, and he'll take any position that comes his way. So he will try and push further forward and try and get everything that he wants to out of it. But you have to say, from Patrick Young, 53 seconds the margin at the front of the field. This is what's known as a complete masterclass of the field. SimRC have proven to themselves today with a 53, now up over 54 second advantage, that they are the team to beat here in this division.
Absolutely, and putting Patrick Young into that car, it's definitely been what's really helped them out, because they did struggle so much in the start of this race. But now that they have Patrick Young in the car, they have just been absolutely tearing away with astronomical pace throughout the course of this event. And I do notice they also have RaceSpot stickers on this one. They must be getting that little bit of extra horsepower that is handed out for that.
Yeah, an extra 0.2 of a second they get per lap, and it shows, because they would be doing a 45.8 otherwise, 45.6 that last time by. So really having a massive amount of pace underneath their bonnets that they are able to put out and showcase here in this one. Simon Essers, though, and also Daniel Jerez in their own little battles, and for the lead they have been trading, and Essers has made his way back through over the last section. Whoa, 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 go careful. Mr. Radical of Eric Smith takes to the infield section to gain the pace back up again, but that could have so easily ended in disaster. He had to hit the brakes because Essers was not accelerating as much as possible. Then came the wiggle, the tank slapper, and lucky to save it.
Oh, yes. He did, however, pass below that double yellow line, technically. Now, I know he was lapping cars, but I'm going to see if I can find in this little rulebook I have in front of me here, if you are allowed to pass a lap car to lap them below those yellow lines. Because if you're not, that is technically a breach of track limits and could result in a penalty for that Radical, which would be the last thing they want with less than 15 minutes to go.
Well, they'd have to be protested on it, and I think that the MX-5s are just happy that Radical is out of their way. Here comes Daniel Jerez, though. Thought about the inside, but there came a Radical to completely ruin that one. That was the race leaders going through, and meaning that there is just 13 or 12 and a half minutes to go in this event, and Simon Essers still holds that advantage over Daniel Jerez marginally through turn number 1, and that's the battle that will be main focus between now and the end of this event. We've also got Marcel Mercer versus Alex Coffard, as well as David Rofe. This 3-car scrap which is continuing to go on, and actually you have to say that for the huge-ass gold car doing well, for the huge-ass blue car which was looking for a top 10, now they find themselves in about 5th position, exactly a lap down. That's a great little result for them.
Absolutely. We've seen the huge-ass teams and their different teams throughout this event. They have definitely struggled. They haven't had the best of luck, but 5th place after what's been going on, it's definitely something that I would definitely think that they'd be very happy to have that, and it's great to see that they're able to maintain their position at the time, as Alex Albert is trying to use actually the tow from Frank von Brandwick in NAB Racing directly ahead of him to try to pull away a little bit from the Porsche Basel by Sword Rensport Esports team Porsche, who is going to be fighting for position directly behind them.
But did lose 2 seconds over the course of that last lap. Rene Kirchhoff, who has shown his pace in things like the VLN series, that he is a force to be measured with, moved to Avid Chronic Racing last year, now has switched over to Porsche Basel by Sorg Rensport Esports as arguably the next big up-and-coming German team to rival the pure racing teams, to rival the likes of the Williams Esports and the like. This is the next team to keep an eye out on in terms of pace and in terms of what they are capable of doing, and Rene Kirchhoff now is trying to gain one more position after that penalty that they served with Alexander Wax. Rene Kirchhoff is trying to push to get away past Alex Albert.
He's going to push, but does he have the pace and does he have the time? He is just a little weighed within the draft window. He of course has the draft, but it's of course not as big as he would have liked. And of course they're going to have to watch out for 2 Miatas directly in front of them that are going to be fighting for position as well, with Wolfgang Wildenauer for Real Pixel Motorsport and Andrew S. McKee, who are fighting that out for 3rd place in their own class.
Andrew Mickey has got into 3rd, but here comes Wildenauer, goes up high to try and get that one sorted, needs to get the draft going, and hasn't quite found it. Alex Albert moves past leader Frank van Brandwijk, desperate to try and pull out a bit of a gap to Rene Kirchhoff, and van Brandwijk will happily respond in tow to that one. Albert runs a little bit wide, and just behind them, the battle for 3rd continues as Bombshell goes too wide through turn 1 and just hold on as there's a bit of a wiggle from Mickey. Wildenauer running wide, tries to capitalise now into the International Horseshoe. Big defensive line goes a certain Andrew Mickey as Wildenauer just can't get it done.
Passing on the outside of the International Horseshoe, or any of the horseshoes for that matter, is just, it's an almost impossible feat. I'm going to be honest with you here. I've never been able to make a pass around the outside. I don't think I've ever been able to make a pass on the inside of the horseshoes either. They're just so difficult to pass on, as Andreas McKee getting really defensive on the brakes, cuts him off, gives a good racer slap to the face to Real Pixel Motorsport, who's going to try to get a jump on the exit here of the road course. Actually has to brake a little bit to avoid driving into the back of McKee. This could get interesting as they enter the oval, but they have been, of course, split up a little bit from the little braking action that we saw that Real Pixel Motorsport machine have to do.
Yes, and now they'll have the draft, and that will be very, very telling for those. The battle for the lead, though, very firmly on in MX-5's Eschers versus Jerez. Still continues with less than 10 minutes to go, and for the moment at least, no chance to make that move. The scream of a Radical goes by of Demis Tigelaar, 57 seconds now off of the SimRC.de Strawberry machine. And now for Simon Eschers, I think that he's knowing that Daniel Jerez will wait to the last lap to make this move. Anything earlier than that, and it's going to be a case of playing chicken. No, you be second. No, you be second.
That certainly seems to be what's going to be happening, and you do have to appreciate that Daniel Jerez is actually waiting to make it until even later on in the race, where we are coming up. We have less than 10 minutes to go now, just about 7.5 minutes. So he doesn't have too much time. I reckon that these Mazdas, they only have about 2 or 3 laps. There's actually a little bit of rear end wheel spin from Simon Eschers, trying to get the power on. He got one of the rear tires off the ground, managed to correct himself there. So he is beginning to cough up a little bit here as Daniel gets oh so close to the back of him. we're not over yet. The gloves are still yet to come off for this battle.
This is a pressure cooker battle. This is every time they keep condensing and condensing and condensing. And the more that you compress carbon, it turns into diamond. One of these will turn into diamond, the other will fade into dust. And Daniel Jerez now knows this fact and knows that he just needs to just play that simple game and wait for Simon Eschers to open up the one final opportunity that he has tried and tested over previous laps. He can only do that though with the help of other vehicles likes of SimRC.de Strawberry, who will decide how long this race goes on for 225 or maybe even the likes of 226 in terms of time.
Indeed, and it is unbelievable the amount of time that we're seeing being both lost and gained, because we just saw Daniel Jerez from being right up on the bumper on the exit of the road course onto the oval, and to now, like, there's been such a gap that's been built. Can he work his way back up there, and can he actually go for the lead? If I was him, I would actually try to go for the lead as soon as possible, because if you wait much longer, all your hopes of getting that position for first place in your class, it's just going to be gone out the window, and all that work will have been for almost nothing.
Well, for the moment at least, it stays good. Great scrap, though, as René Kirchhoff has caught Alex Albert and is desperate to find a way through. Nothing through the International Horseshoe. Now through the kink towards the West Horseshoe. And soon René Kirchhoff is trying to make this move. Again, a lot more concise on the brakes. Can brake a bit later. Opens up the corner a little bit more. Really, it has been, for that Porsche Plaza car, good. As actually there is Adrian Refsnes, who is slow coming off the exit and has had a spin all on his own. So PCDC trying to get the power down, wiggle around, slow into the Armco, which is not what Refsnes wanted, but Kirchhoff now trying to fight and take fifth in class.
He's gonna have to try, though. You gotta remember that Sim Racing blue card that has Alex Albert behind the wheel, they have worked so hard for this, and they are going to fight to the last second to keep that spot. If they do end up losing out on fifth place, well, let's just say this: they're definitely not going down without a fight. Now, not after all the heartache that's been had throughout this race.
Well, Kirchhoff now has to be cautious. He has to know when to strike, as now only two vehicles find themselves on the leading lap of this event. Gap at the front of the field, 1 minute is the gap, which is such an age when it comes to this field. But Kirchhoff is getting in the mirrors. He's getting a little bit larger in those mirrors, just trying to be that little annoyance to try and force a mistake out of Huge As Blue. No chance into turn number one of making that one happen, and so they wait a little bit longer. GT Temple, though, still holding themselves about a 4 car lengths advantage here at the front of the field, and they are trying to hold off the World of Sim Racing team. And what a big result that would be for Daniel Jerez and the Spanish-based outfit. They want that victory. They want to prove it with under 5 minutes to go here at Daytona. 3 minutes, 40 seconds and under. Patrick Young will be forcing this one to go for 3 more laps for Simon Eschers and also for Daniel Jerez. So we'll keep an eye on it in towards the International Horseshoe. When do you decide it's time to go and make that move? The lights are on here as the floodlights have illuminated at Daytona Beach, at Daytona International Speedway, and now under the light, this is where the spotlight is shining brightest.
Jerez has to go for it now. You cannot afford to wait any longer than this, and I'm pretty sure he knows it. He's going to be really, really aggressive here, especially in the braking zone, to try to get the power down, and in the NASCAR section of this track as well. And that, I feel, if he can get clear by the bus stop chicane or even by turn one, he will have won the race, because all he has to do is just go hard on defense. He does poke the nose out a little bit as they go back onto the oval. He's not going to be there, but they are going to be close. They will be side by side, I would expect, coming down to the bus stop chicane. And if he can play it right, Jerez can take the spot now and hopefully the race win in their class.
Well, he can hope and do only just that. So good run coming through NASCAR's turns 1 and 2. The Budweiser on the right-hand side will be encroaching as they head themselves past the party porch into the left-right chicane that comes along at the bus stop. And again, Simon Esch is proving that he's got himself a fantastic run through that section, but a great exit from Daniel Jerez lines up the run. SimRC.de Strawberry confirms 2 laps to go at Daytona Beach, Florida. Everyone is going 2 more times around the circuit and a little bit more. The battle for third as well in your MX-5 category is still on as Real Pixel still hold on to Bombshell.
They're really trying. This is where, just like we just talked about, they are going to be able to go for it. And here we go, making for the pass for third. We also have fights going on in the Porsche class as well, as that Real Pixel Motorsport finally gets it done, and they will clear that Bombshell Motorsports car going to the bus stop chicane. They have got that position done and done with, and we still have that fight going on in your Porsche class as well.
It's not decisive though, the move, as we are focusing on Fisher Motorsports and SimSport News in the battle for 15th overall. Manuel Maya against David Rofe as SimSport try and stay with Fisher, who have been at the back for the majority of the day, but they have worked themselves up to get a pretty good result out of it as they now make their way through the right-hander, and not quite close enough, you feel, is David Rofe to try and capitalise and take that position. Breaks left-hander onto the oval. Nothing doing just yet, but hoping to get a little bit of something for Patrick Young, though, as he makes his way towards the tri-oval out of turn number 4. There will be 1 lap remaining for SimRC.de Strawberry, who have walked away from the rest of the field. We'll keep an eye out, though, on what is happening with Fisher and SimSport. The answer to that one is not much. There has been a change of position, though, and that is Hugh Jass, who have fallen behind the Porsche Basel by Silbrand Sports esports car for 5th position. Real Pixel, though, run into issues because the 299 machine is out and has crashed with just not long to go. It was on the oval. There was 1 vehicle trying to go through. That was the Hugh Jass vehicle trying to get in there, and for Wildenauer, he was trying to straight line, and everyone skittles around. 6s and 7s, disaster on the final lap, and that cost them a potential podium at the moment. Patrick Young makes his way through the West Horseshoe as things stand. We look to your MX-5 lead, though, very, very briefly. It's still Simon Eschers who has the advantage, but the question now becomes, as they make their way to the start-finish line, this one final lap, where do you do it? Daniel Jerez. Answer is, it's going to be a wait for a pretty long time to see if anything's going to happen. But for SimRC.de Strawberry, they've got themselves a bus stop chicane and 1 final corner to go. 1:10 ahead of anybody else in this field. Patrick Young has walked away from everybody else and has showcased just what a driver that he can be in his field. He has done absolutely marvelously over the course of this one, and now you have to say it is in his hands as he makes his way out of NASCAR turn number 4 to the tri-oval, and Patrick Young picks up victory here for SimRC.de Strawberry and the first win of the ClubSport Series. NAB Racing will be the last of them to get to the line, so we focus on GT Temple against World of Sim Racing. They will come onto the oval then for the final time in their event. Daniel Jerez all over the rear like a hot rush against this GT Temple Simon Eschers machine, who cannot shake them clear. It's like having a tow bar connected between the pair of them, and they hope that someone can break the deadlock. The question becomes, does Simon Eschers let him go now and push for the line, or does Daniel Jerez go for it now and try and run the gauntlet? The answer is he will not run any form of gauntlet as they head their way to the bus stop chicane. It's a waiting game, and there, being very patient, is George Gruber and Jeffrey Garazotto, who will wait until after the chicane to make the move sorted. They know how important this battle is on the final lap between these two. Now, Daniel Jerez, you've got to get in the draft and push with everything that you have left. That gap of about 2.5 tenths of a second closes down to 2 tenths of a second. closes down to 1/10.5 of a second, closes down to 1/10 of a second. Now out of turn 4, pulls along to the outside, has got to do it high side to try and make this happen. It's a drag race, and have they nicked it at the line? It's a photo finish between them. GT Temple have thieved it at the line, and you can't get much closer than that. Fantastic racing between the pair of them, and finally NAB Racing crosses the line to win the category of Porsches. What a finish we have seen, Nolan.
That was unbelievable. The entire last lap of that was incredible. We had the crash that split our battle for third in our Mazda class. We had a photo finish in our Mazda class. What was that lap? GT Temple Racing did manage to just barely hold on to the lead. Great attempt from the World of Sim Racing team. That you cannot get much better than that with the last lap action here, honestly. You cannot get much better than that.
You cannot indeed. Classified results then, let's get them up on your screen. This is how it finishes at Daytona International Speedway. MRC.de Strawberry take the victory in 2 hours, 26 minutes and 25 seconds. A minute 12 clear of SROC Racing Orange, the only other finishers on the leading lap. Graphite Racing had the early pace lead, but they falter to third position come the end of this event. The Apex Racing Groups Blue and Purple get 4th and 5th before NAB Racing take the victory in your Porsche category, with PCDC Motorsport Yellow 6th in class for them. Bombshell Inc. gets 2nd position in Porsches, with Talk Freak Racing Avon Rise getting 3rd. Slow Racing Team are 4th, with Huge Ass Blue stealing it away from Porsche Basel in the final lap. Huge Ass Gold gets 7th in class, with Real Pixel Motorsport 3 in 8th. Fisher Motorsports get 9th ahead of SimSport News Racing, powered by Green Zone in iZone Green in 10th position. And you got the likes of German Sim Racing, Gold Racing Team White faltered towards the end. The likes of Enigma, ClubSport Porsche, Team Vikings Valhalla and PCDC Motorsports Blue having their own races. A few laps down is the likes of WR Racing, Nibble Racing, WR Racing B and SK Motorsports all running into issues today, as did German Sim Racing Orange. GT Temple though thieve a victory. They hold on against World of Sim Racing team, who did everything possible, but it was of a car length short as they tried to get to the line. Bombshell Motorsports Inc. get 3rd after a big calamity in the penultimate lap. Disable Motorsports are 4th, with Team Viking Sleifner in 5th. Real Pixel fall to 6th after the incident. Ava Vavatic 7th. World of Sim Racing Team Junior in 8th after their issues. And vehicles that got disqualified or failed to finish: German Disaster Sim Racing, Talk Freak Racing Maggots, Bad Cactus Racing Chola 95, 7 Stars Fast, Sim Sports News, their MX-5 entry, and Gold Racing Team as well. We're going to step aside for just one moment here with RaceSpotTV, because the post-race show is coming to you after this.
Alfala is $10,500 richer. Two-time NASCAR is your 2013 NASCAR iRacing. It's going to be Humpy winning the race, and it's going to be Conti taking away his first NASCAR 2017 NASCAR Beginner Series Championship to Ryan Luza. Is a 4-time champion of the NASCAR GT3 Cup Racing Series. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118, 119, 120
Racing is class. No matter what sort of race that you look at, no matter what position you see, no matter how many vehicles are involved, it is an absolutely world-class effort from everybody involved. A fantastic race from minute 1 to minute last, and one which proved it in the MX-5 category with a photo finish for the victory after 2 hours and 26 minutes worth of racing plus. We're here in the post-race show, here with RaceSpotTV. It's Jake Sperry, Nolan Rempel here in the commentary booth, and we're going to bring in your race victor overall, Patrick Young, joining us then from the SimRC.de Strawberry team. Patrick, 1 minute 12 seconds lead from a 7-second disadvantage after the first stop. I would call that a masterclass of the field.
Thank you very much. If you call it, then I appreciate it. Well, it was a very, very tough race for us. Rudi spun 2 times and, well, was a bit down when he gave the car to me, and, well, it turns out very good in the end. So I have nothing to complain about.
Well, nothing to complain about, especially with the margin of victory that you had. But let's just talk a little bit about track conditions, because as the track got colder, as night started to set in, it seemed that the Radical got a little bit more finicky behind the wheel. How difficult is the changing conditions which have been added to iRacing in the previous build?
When it's getting colder and colder, of course you need to adapt to it. But for the Radical, it wasn't that hard to adapt. Of course, the rear is a bit twitchy, and you need to be aware of the oval entry. But the rest isn't that hard, to be honest.
Well, the rest may not be that hard, but you're hoping to get yourself a championship-looking season, and after this first race, you're looking pretty much on course for that one. Before we let you go, any shout-outs or sponsors?
Of course, to Asha Racing and to iLiveries, to Randy, who made all of our paints, which you saw recently, and yeah, to my awesome teammates of SimRC.de.
No worries at all. Patrick Young getting a big race victory then for SimRC.de. Nolan Rempel standing by with the Porsche category winner, Frank van Brandwijk.
Now, Frank, obviously this is going to be a huge win. It's a great way to start off the season for the rest of NAB Racing as well, with winning the Porsche category. You did manage to get by Darwin Meitz in the Bombshell Motorsports Porsche further towards the end of the race. Could you walk us through that?
Yeah, it was really an interesting race. In the beginning of the race, we already noticed that it will be really hard to overtake and keep in front with the draft on the straight. So yeah, Martijn chose to do the additional lap on fuel, and that enabled us to jump the field actually. Yeah, that enabled us to just do our own race and do our own laps and keep out of trouble. That was hard enough already. So yeah, we had an interesting fight. I'm not sure which car it was. He came really close to me. He spun actually. I saw him in my mirrors. I had to avoid him. I touched Mazda during, but thankfully everything was fine with our car. But yeah, afterwards it was just cruising home.
And despite your comments saying that it is, of course, a difficult track to try to pass at, but you made it look easy out there. You made up 7 positions for your team since the start of the race, and it's just an overall. I'd call that a win overall. You won first in your class. You made your way up 7 positions from the start of the race. How would you compare how the race was going for you from the start to the end?
Yeah, it's just keeping your patience actually in this track. Especially it doesn't matter if you try to keep going to the front, because it's so easy to overtake again on the straight, and yeah, you can battle it, but you lose a lot of time with it, and it's a lot of risk. So yeah, we choose to just focus and yeah, keep it clean and let the other guys do the errors, and that succeeded actually. And yeah, we had of course also a good baseline speed, but I think the main reason is we kept out of trouble.
And before we let you go back to celebrate with the rest of your team, do you have any final words, any sponsors you'd like to shout out today?
Yeah, I would like to thank NAB Racing for me letting them join actually it's my first race for NAB Racing, so really happy to join the team.
Well, not a worry at all. Frank van Brandwijk then coming home with everything then in first position for category. Very quickly, we're going to talk to Simon Eschers for GT Temple Racing. Simon, they don't get much closer than that.
Yeah, yeah. That was great. Great race, great end from us. We had having very fun in the race. The guy from Jörg had some problems with his wheel and his shifter, but he managed the best he can do. And after the second stint, I said, okay, let's make the best out of it. And yeah, but had many problems with the blinking of Daniel in the last laps. Yeah.
And in terms of those last laps, seeing how Daniel was trying to trial moves to the line, you two weren't going to have any opposition from behind. How difficult of a race is the tactical game of chess that you played with Daniel Jerez? And for those who don't understand that sort of style of racing, how do you sort of advocate that sort of racing for the future?
Yeah, that's what's very difficult because I see Daniel was faster than me, and I had to try best laps I can do and best positions on track with the overlapping from the cars. And I tried, and I know in the last lap, I think he will make a pass. Will try it on the last straight, and I try best out of the bus stop, get the best line and best speed, and then hoping, go inside and hoping that it's going out. We can finish the race in first, and it was so close. I was thinking, that was it. On my team colleague Jörg says, "Oh no, we are second," and I said, "No, we are first. We are first. We are on the bottom line, and we will win this. We will win this."
Well, you managed to get a big victory. Before we let you go, any shout outs to sponsors?
Yeah. And instead of that, Jörg and me was ill the whole day, and we said, "Okay, let's make a cool race, nothing big fight or a little confidence." And we win it. Okay.
Well, incredibly happy Simon Eschers then, who takes the big victory for the MX-5 category. Very quickly and finally, Nola Rempel standing by with Talk Freak Racing's James Ewens, who came home third in the Porsches.
Yeah.
Now, James, your team ended up working their way up 15 spots from where they started in the race, and you ended up finishing third place in your class. Would you count that as a win for you today?
Well, I mean, in the AM class we were winners, so yeah, I would. But no, seriously, the improvement from where we started. My qualifying lap wasn't amazing, but it wasn't terrible. It was quite a close field actually with the quali times. So yeah, to improve that many spaces, yeah, really good.
It did seem to, the mood of the race seemed to change drastically as time went on, and especially in the closing laps of the race when temperatures started to drop off. How did your team and yourself, more importantly, ended up dealing with stuff like the changing temperatures and all the lap traffic that you ended up having to work yourselves through?
Yeah, I mean the lap traffic was actually not too bad for the Porsches. The MX-5s were all excellent. The MX-5 guys were just insanely good this race. It's the best league race I've had with traffic ever. So well done to all the MX-5 drivers. The Radicals were a little bit more tricky because of the speed difference issues, but mostly okay. Temperature-wise, it kind of made our race a bit easier because we decided to go for the double stint for the latter part of the race when the track was cooler, so it actually made it quite a bit easier to us. So yeah, it was really helpful for our strategy. Actually, we wouldn't have been able to do that on the before day night was introduced.
Well, it's good to hear that things definitely seem to go your way throughout the course of this entire race from start to finish. And before we let you get back to the rest of your team, do you have any shout-outs you'd like to make today? Yeah,
just a shout out to our poor Mazda. Gianni and Phil Gianni especially is on the biggest run of bad luck I've ever seen on iRacing. He's been wrecked in every DGFX race. He gets wrecked in this, so I feel really bad for Gianni, and also Phil for being his teammate. But yeah, shout out to Infinity Decals, our main sponsor, and George, obviously my teammate in the 911. Really superb work. So
well, there we go. James Ewens then joining us from Talk Freak Racing, but here with RaceSpotTV, that's all we're going to have time for this evening. But there is more than that available with RaceSpotTV, because the Neo Endurance Series is coming tomorrow, and it's 6 hours at Suzuka. Join Cameron Walsh, Connery Maddock, and Tobias Brockman for that one. But more importantly, here to this evening, it's a lot more that we have to do to thank, and a lot of people that we need to thank as well. Most crucially, Handburn Designs, the official graphics partners here at RaceSpotTV, with ATVO and Apgeneer, the official graphics engine. Live timing and scoring was brought to you by Nick Disson, with, of course, Esteban Ballo's Track Cams 22 coming into play with our cameras, and they are absolutely fantastic. As well as one more thing, of course, our animations by Simon Grossman. That's an absolute masterclass of what can happen here at Daytona. And if you want more Daytona action, then turn up in a week from now, because the iRacing 24 Hours of Daytona is coming to you. And there will be a lot of action here on the iRacing Esports Network, with RaceSpotTV taking charge of it. But for the time being, that's Nolan Rempel, that's Hugo Louise on cameras. I've been Jake Sperry, and we've seen domination from the Porsches, decimation from the Radicals, but ultimately half a tyre was all that split things up when it came to the finish for your Mazdas. What a brilliant series this has been, what a brilliant race it's been. But from us here at RaceSpotTV, it's good night for now, and we'll see you tomorrow for the Neo Endurance Series.